Good evening and welcome to the January 24th Parks and Recreation Commission meeting. This is our first meeting of the calendar year. So welcome. In years past, this would be a reorganization meeting where we would have new commissioner members coming on and we'd be voting for a new chair, electing a new chair and vice chair. This year, the terms have been extended until the end of March. And so the reorganization meeting for the commissions will happen in April. However, the city council did have their new reorganization. We have a new mayor and vice mayor, and I'm pleased to have Vice Mayor Stone joining us as our Parks and Recreation Commission liaison for the coming year. So welcome and thank you, Greer.
Thank you, Chair Greenfield. Good to be here.
And we look forward to working with you in the coming year. Can we proceed with a roll call, please?
Chair Greenfield.
Here.
Commissioner Brown.
Here.
Commissioner Cripps.
Here.
Commissioner Freeman.
Here.
Commissioner Kleinhaus.
Yes.
Commissioner Oche.
Yeah.
And Vice Mayor Greer.
Here.
Chair, that's 7 present.
Thank you. And our first order of business is the adoption of a resolution authorizing the use of conferencing for parks and rec commission meetings during the COVID-19.
So moved. I'll second.
And a roll call vote, please.
Chair Greenfield.
Yeah.
Commissioner Brown.
Yes.
Yes.
Commissioner Cripps.
Yes.
Commissioner Freeman.
Yes.
Commissioner Kleinhaus.
Yes.
Commissioner Oche.
Yes, please.
Chair, that's a 6-0 vote.
Thank you. Now is an opportunity for public comment for any item that is not on the agenda this evening. And so if there's anyone either joining us in person in chambers today, or who would like to, or who is joining us via Zoom online, please raise your hand via Zoom or complete a speaker card. I see we have one member of the public who'd like to comment already. It's Herb Borak. So come on up. You'll have 3 minutes to speak, and we can add others while he's speaking. When Herb is done, we'll make that the end of the time period for people to indicate they'd like to speak.
The commissioners, Vice Mayor Stone, I spoke to you last fall about the Magic Forest and the cutting down of
Excuse me, Herb, could you speak into the mic a little bit more?
Yeah, I spoke to you in the fall about the Magic Forest and the cutting down of trees, the unusual situation where the well site there is part of the park and they needed a park improvement ordinance. And the mitigation for work that went then there was to replace any part of the Magic Forest that it had harmed. At that time, there were a couple of trees that had been marked to be cut down, large ones. And there's a 2-week notice that's given by Public Works. And it was beyond that time they hadn't been cut down. Since then, the council had its last meeting on December 19th, and you met earlier in December on the 13th. On December 20th, which is the first day of the council's 3-week vacation, another tree, I guess a younger and smaller one, the one closest to Hopkins Avenue, was marked to be cut down, and with a 2-week notice covering the holiday season and covering the council's vacation, I guess vacation for other staff as well. If you take a look at the area, it looks like it's an extension of Pine Street, which is the cross street to Hopkins, the first one after Newell Road. So it's a wide open area leading into the back of the pool at Enricanado Park. So I don't know whether somebody has plans for this or not, But unlike those other trees, that last one that was cut down within that 2-week period. It didn't wait for a long period of time or for someone to come here and talk about it before you. So I'll provide you with an overhead view of the Magic Forest and show you where Pine Street is. And at your leisure, you can go take a look at it and see if it's any reason to get any report back from staff about it. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker will be John Williams. Go ahead and unmute.
Oh, good evening, Chair Greenfield and Commissioners. I'm Monica Williams with the Palo Alto Pickleball Club, and I'd like to give you a short update. Our club continues to grow, and we now have over 500 members who are Palo Alto residents. We want to thank you again for voting unanimously in November to provide a pilot program for court usage priority on the temporary pickleball courts. By having the ability to use the courts after school, 2 of our new board members are looking forward to growing the youth pickleball program as soon as possible. Paige Cook has a 10 and an 11-year-old, and Jocelyn Seng has 2 teenagers. They know very well how pickleball can benefit our youth. Many kids cannot get on a soccer, basketball, football, or tennis team at school, but because pickleball is easy to learn and fun to play, many can excel at this sport and become accomplished competitive players. And now that we have the evening hours, more families will be able to play together, and also those daytime workers who cannot play during the day. I want to share with you that Stanford University celebrated the grand opening of 8 pickleball courts last weekend, and hundreds attended the celebration. It was fantastic. Thank you all for being visionaries and believing in the benefit of pickleball for our community. Please come out and play with us sometime. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker will be Yudi. Appreciate if you can introduce yourself with a full name, followed by Heidi Voltmer, who will be our final speaker this evening.
Hi, Chair and board members. My name is Yudi Den, last name D-E-N-G. I'm a Palo Alto resident, and I want to share a thank you note to the Senior Community Service Manager Adam Howard and his colleague Chase Boone and Andrew at the Mitchell Park office. I wanted to take this moment to express my gratitude for all of the hard work that they have put in as the parks managers, coordinators, coordinating the playing fields, because it takes a lot of time and effort, and it is clear that your team take your role very seriously. Your dedication to ensuring that the fields, either soccer or tennis or pickleball, are well maintained and available for the community members to use is truly appreciated. Your attention to detail and the commitment to excellence is a great example for others to follow. So thank you, Adam, and your team for all that you do for our community. And I also want to say, as a Palo Alto resident, I also want to apply for the vacancy at the board in the coming March, April. So stay tuned. Thank you.
Thank you. And our final speaker will be Heidi Voltmer.
Hi, can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you. I'm not sure if I'm in the right spot. I wanted to speak about the Coverly restrooms, so I don't know if I should do that when it's on the agenda or if just if it goes in the public comment.
Yes, we'll this is not the right time. We'll give you an opportunity to speak later. Thanks. That concludes public comment. Next up is agenda changes, additions, and deletions. Do any commissioners have anything to suggest there? Thank you. Then we'll move on to the approval of minutes. We have 2 sets of minutes to approve from our November 22nd and December 13th minutes from last year. We'll start off first with November 22nd. Does anyone have any comments or recommendations on changes? Seeing that there are none, can we get a motion to approve the minutes, please?
I approve. Make a motion to approve.
Thank you. And a second?
Second.
Thank you. And roll call vote, please.
Chair Greenfield,
Yes.
Commissioner Brown,
Yes.
Commissioner Cribbs, Commissioner Freeman,
Yes.
Commissioner Kleinhaus,
Yes.
Commissioner Oche.
Yes.
Chair, that's a 6-0 vote.
Thank you. And we'll now move on to the December 13th minutes. Does anyone have any comments or changes to recommend? Seeing there are none, can I have a motion to approve the minutes, please?
So moved.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Perhaps we can find a second.
I'll second.
Competition now. Thank you. Can we have a roll call vote, please?
Chair Greenfield,
Yes.
Commissioner Brown,
Yes.
Commissioner Cribbs, Commissioner Freeman,
Yes.
Commissioner Kleinhaus,
Yes.
and Commissioner Oche.
Yes, please.
Chair, that's a 6-0 vote.
Thank you. And next up is the department report.
Good evening. I'm Darren Anderson with Community Services Department. Start with a couple storm impact updates for the commission. In open space, we dealt with a number of challenges: flooding issues, landslides, trail washouts, and downed trees and tree limbs. There were approximately 11 trees that staff are aware of that came down in the Baylands. And in foothills and Pearson Arastradero, approximately 10 trees. Most of these are in real visible areas, either along trails or main roads, that kind of thing. There were about 25 tree obstructions. These came down on long trails and had to be cleared by the open space staff, mostly large branches. And in Foothills Preserve, we closed the trails on multiple occasions for safety reasons. Currently, all the trails are open except for that eastern portion of Fern Loop Trail. It's a very small section, but that'll be remain closed until our trail contractor comes back and can analyze it and help us determine how to repair that. In Pearson Arastradero Preserve, all the trails are now open except for the seasonal trails. These are ones that aren't really hardened, meaning they've got a lot of natural soil there that get very wet and stay wet and muddy. So those close seasonally. They're closed now because, again, the recent rain was just too much and it couldn't take it. So the rangers reanalyze it about every 3 or 4 days, depending on the weather. So they'll be out there again, checking it and opening that as soon as possible. In the urban parks, there were a lot of tree limbs that came down in numerous parks. About 10 full trees fell in various locations. Bull Park, Pardee Park, Greer and Mitchell and Ramos all had some trees fall. There were flooding issues in several sites, in particular Hoover Park and the Mitchell Park Dog Run. Those have been since taken care of. Usually it's clogged drains for the most part as the source, and staff pre-storm went out and cleared them. And then during, it was hard to keep up with the number of clogs that were happening. Another impact from the storm was the Cupperley tennis courts. Fortunately, the wind was so powerful that it blew over a portion of the fence. I believe staff shared an email with some photos with you. So we're waiting on cost estimates and for the turf to dry out enough that we can get the heavy vehicles out there to repair that. We expect the price estimates to come in the next day or two, and then we'll just keep testing the field to see if it's dry enough to get the trucks on. The infill replacement project at Mayfield Soccer Complex was completed and the fields opened for play on December 20th. That went well. It seems to be working out well and was well received. The restrooms at Mitchell Park near the tennis courts have been closed due to a significant blockage in the line. It was really difficult. The utilities team and the public works team came out multiple times and struggled to fix it. We had to bring temporary restrooms out to the site for a few weeks. They were repaired last night and now they're open again. So big thanks to those two departments for their hard work in helping get that back online. The one-day art project that was designed to engage the community about sea level rise at the Baylands was held on January 21st, and it went very well. The artist had an exhibit over by the Lucy Evans Baylands Interpretive Center, and then one by the Eco Center. And both of them had a lot of park visitors stop by and express interest, and a lot of good conversations were had. There is a housing development at 2850 West Bay Shore. This is right against Greer Park. And staff have been aware of this for a while. They've been working with our planning department to get all the permits to do their project. But however, one part we only recently learned about is that they need to encroach into Greer Park to connect their property's new housing to the sanitary sewer line. And they've got an easement to do so. But we, again, didn't find out until quite recently. And unfortunately, this encroachment into the park will impact the users of Greer Field 3. And so we're working on, between planning and public works and utilities, and of course the property owner, how we can arrange the timing of this to minimize the impact to the leagues using that field. So we've had one meeting, we've got another one coming up really soon to try to work this out. So I don't have a lot of details right now, other than to say we're going to do our best to minimize the impacts to all the park users. So I'll have something more for you soon on that one. Last night at City Council, there was a presentation on the annual community survey results. I understand this will be discussed at the upcoming City Council retreat and priority setting, which will happen on Saturday, January 28th. But I thought I might just share a few key notes that came from this report. Nearly 9 in 10 residents rated the overall quality of the natural environment in Palo Alto as excellent or good. Almost all residents, 94%, visited a neighborhood or city park in the last 12 months. Preservation of natural areas was rated positively by over 4 in 5 residents. And when asked about community focus in the coming 2 years, 4 in 5 residents rated it is essential or very important to focus on the overall quality of the natural environment in Palo Alto. And lastly, residents were asked to name the one thing they believe the city does well and would want to maintain. And the most popular answer was parks, open space, and the natural environment, which was mentioned by 1/4 of the residents. The Parks and Recreation Commission e-bike recommendation that went to City Council, it was pulled from the consent calendar. This was at Council the other night, and it'll be rescheduled. We're looking at February 27th as the tentative date for that. And I'll confirm it once we get that ironed out for sure, and let you know. So that will be coming back to Council for a discussion rather than being on consent. The Parks and Recreation Commission recruitment deadlines changed to February 28th. And just a department recruitment update, we're still recruiting for a park maintenance position, and we'll be interviewing for 3 open space park technicians and our budget analyst. We've got a couple fun new recreation classes coming in the spring. We've added a new vendor so we can offer more soccer classes. The vendor is named World Cup Soccer Clinics and Camps, and they'll be offering clinics to youth ages 4 to 6 and 7 to 9. And the clinics will be offered at Greer Park. We still have our contract with the vendor Kids Love Soccer, but we felt we needed to add another soccer contractor to alleviate the long wait lists that we had with the Kids Love Soccer classes over the last couple of years. There'll be a new adult salsa class in the evenings at Lucy Stern Ballroom. There'll be ballroom dancing classes in the evenings at Stern, and students can learn cha-cha, rumba, samba, and jive. And street dancing for teens and adults with disabilities. And we had tried this particular class for 1 season last spring. Enrollment was a little low, but the recreation staff felt it was worth trying again. And the descriptions of all these classes can be found on our Enjoy online website. And Chair, that concludes staff presentation.
Thank you, Darren. Do any commissioners have any questions regarding the department report?
I just have one compliment. My power was among the power that went off on Sunday night for overnight because of the tree that fell someplace. And it must have been a big tree because the power was out for a long time, but utilities and everybody did a great job communicating and getting the power back on. So I was very appreciative. So I wanted to mention
great.
that.
That's great.
I also was at Mitchell Park on Saturday for the Lunar New Year celebration, and it was fabulous. Just a great community event with tons of people and a real celebration. And the other one that was that way was Martin Luther King community celebration that was also at Mitchell Park, the Martin Luther King Day. So had some really nice things in the community the last couple of weeks.
Excellent. Thank you.
So thank you.
Chair, if you don't mind just me mentioning real quickly, I wanted to give acknowledgement to the Public Works Urban Forest team. They worked just some really long hours through that entire storm. As I come at 6 o'clock in the morning to work, some of them are just leaving because they had been working all through the night. And I saw it over and over and over because they were out clearing trees. And so I just wanted to give a acknowledgement of Peter Gollinger and his whole team. They really worked hard and helped clear a lot of trees, both for parks and of course throughout the whole city.
Thank you. Nellis?
Yeah, I also want to sort of tag in with what Commissioner Cribbs had to say. The latest issue of the Enjoy magazine, I have not received nothing but high praise for a job that, I mean, people are just blown away how well it's organized, the timeliness of it, and how easy it is to read. So people who've kind of approached me who knew I was on the Parks and Rec Commission, it's nice to know that, there's something that the city's doing a lot of good things. And so you should really reach out to the folks who take the time and the energy to put that together. They've done an excellent job on that, and a job well done. I kind of remember the old days of trying to figure out what class or what camps my kids are going to go to, getting up at 4 a.m. and waiting in line like everyone else. So this just makes it a lot easier, but I've kind of missed out on that. I guess I have to wait for my grandchild on that one. But thanks, and please pass that on to the people who are responsible. The other thing you mentioned about the Coverly tennis, did that impact any of the tennis players?
Yes, it is. Okay. It is currently impacting them. So 2 of the 6 courts are open. Those 4 are coming, their closure comes at the expense of permitted play. So we've had to contact people who are ready to play and tell them, unfortunately, we've got to get this fixed. So we've expressed that to the consultants that we're trying to get to do the repairs. We'd like this to happen as soon as possible. So we're working on that.
Okay. And lastly, good job. Pass that on to the folks who were able to get the tennis court, the soccer courts up and running. I was passed by there a couple of times during the heavy rains, and people were out there. It looked like they were enjoying what they were doing. And so it was a great job in getting that together quickly and getting it back in operation. So I want to go ahead and pass that on to the folks as well. Thank you.
Do other commissioners have questions or comments for Darren? Joy?
Mine is just to echo what, excuse me, just to echo what you said, Commissioner Cribbs. I was at the New Year, the Lunar New Year celebration as well, and it was fun. My kids loved it.
Oh, great.
I also attended the MLK celebration as well, organized by the Jewish community, and it was fun. I'm glad to be a part of what's going on, and I'm excited that the team is doing so much. I also want to appreciate the team for the work in the infield soccer, the project, how prompt it was, and being able to make sure that was sorted out in time before the end of the year. I feel it's a big feat, and I just want to appreciate the team as well. Yeah.
Thank you.
Shani?
I went to the Baylands during the high tides, the king tides, a few times. There were a lot of people around the art project. That was kind of fun to see. And there were a lot of people everywhere. I mean, that was a very exciting thing for people to come and see. And we had some flooding of the trails when they're right next to the water. Normally, if you put them 10 feet away, they probably wouldn't have been flooded. But there was some, and added to the interest. There was a rabbit that was probably preyed by a hawk on the trail, and that attracted some interest. It was quite dead, but still kids are interested in those kind of things. So it was a fun visit to see and to see what the birds are doing and everything. And also I thought that the report on the survey was really excellent results, and it shows that what the Parks Department is doing is really important to this community, and that nature is very, very important to the community as well, and that people really appreciate the attention to all these things. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
Vice Chair? Thank you for the report, Darren. It's great to hear lots of good news and really lots of things we should be thankful for and thank the efforts of the people. And it's great news regarding the survey results that Parks and Open Space and Natural Environment are so well appreciated. And hopefully that gets remembered when the budget gets sorted out in the coming June and we have some asks here and there. Really appreciative of the services of Peter Gollinger and the urban forestry team. And I know it's been a lot of work and for Public Works. And so that's much appreciated. Getting Mayfield going, that's great. One question I do have regarding the encroachment to the Greer 3 playing field. How is the timing decided? There's preferred times from a recreation standpoint in terms of when the fields are least used or less used. There's timing for construction schedules. Who controls this? How is that decided?
Yeah, I think my experience in the past, this is typically planning that does the liaison work with the owner who wants to do the development and then reaches out to multiple departments to understand constraints. And typically that gets built into the permit, depending on what kind of permit's necessary. In this one, we're still defining what that permit might be. But I intend to doing everything I can to minimize the impacts of that project on the park users. So I don't know exactly who will be making the final call. I've got meetings with 4 different departments coming up on this topic. So multiple hands in the decision-making, and I'll be doing the best to advocate for the park.
Great. And it sounds like we're maybe on their radar a little more directly as opposed to getting looped in late, which it sounds like could happen.
And to be honest, planning did a great job pulling us in early. However, the devil was in the details, and somehow we didn't end up getting this note about the encroachment into the park until a little later. So sometimes those nuances can really impact. So we'll do our best going forward to be on top of it.
Appreciate it. Anything else before we move on? Okay, our next order of business is the Coverly Community Center Playing Fields Restroom Addition Project.
My pleasure to introduce Peter Jensen. He's the Public Works Engineering Landscape Architect. Thank you, Peter, for being here.
Thank you. And before we get started, I just want to give a quick overview. This is a discussion item for the commission. This is as a discussion item. We will not be taking a formal vote. We'll be making recommendations to staff. Ultimately, the decision of where a restroom goes at Coverly is a staff decision. So this isn't something that City Council decides. Since it's not something the council decides, it's not something that this body would take an action or a vote to make a specific recommendation. But I do know that there are verbal recommendations as part of a discussion are considered by staff. So just want to clarify that for everyone. Please go ahead and welcome. Thank you, Peter.
Thank you, Chair. Peter Jensen, Landscape Architect for the City of Palo Alto. Good evening, Commission. Here to discuss the Coverly Field restroom. It's been an ongoing project since 2018. Of course, there was a period where we were not working on the project due to COVID, but now we would like to get input from the Commission, mostly concerning the location of the restroom itself. I'm going to go through a presentation and then we can answer questions or comments at the end. So we're just going to go through some project information, review the locations, like I said, review community survey that we did, an online survey, review the restroom type that we're proposing, review the project schedule, and then, like I said, do questions and comments after. Again, started this project in 2018, was postponed due to COVID, and then some limited city staffing. We're on track now to hopefully move forward and get a restroom at Coverly, which is definitely well needed. The total project budget for the restroom is $480,000. Like I said, the restroom is definitely much needed there. Currently now there's a portable restroom, a one portable restroom that's by the track and field with an estimated use on the weekends, especially on Saturdays and when the fields are programmed to have between 500 to 750 visitors using the field areas during that time. So it is a facility that we do need. Our first community meeting was held in 2015 or 2018 on November 15th. We reviewed what we're calling the, I guess, location 1 here tonight, which is closer to the entry of the track and field and adjacent to the parking lot. Reviewed the restroom style at that meeting as well and what it would look like. We had a subsequent meeting just recently in August of 2022 where we explored an alternate location. After doing more research from the first meeting, we noticed that the sewer line is fairly a long way away and it's difficult to get there. The first location requires a pump station. So we looked at an alternative location to try to eliminate that. From that, and due to low turnout, we actually had one community member come to that community meeting. We did an online community survey, which was very well actually responded to. So I think we got some good feedback from that. Go to the next slide. Of course, why the new restroom? The capacity and the use of Coverly Fields, their kind of demand a facility like this. We'll look at in a minute here. There is a current restroom in the actual buildings of Coverly that is mostly taking up, besides the portable that we have out there, the capacity that's there now. It's not in close proximity to the fields at all. It requires a little walk to get there. And it is kind of in the middle of the built environment of Coverly. So not the easiest thing to find. Of course, we do want to provide better facilities for the community, especially since we enhanced the track and field there in 2017 and the heavy use of the fields themselves, especially for program soccer and things of that nature. In the first meeting and in the second meeting just most recently, this is the restroom that we looked at. It is a prefabricated building. It is 2 unisex stalls. It does have a drinking fountain. This matches the style that's used at the golf course currently. So we do have one of these restrooms already. It's very durable, which is something that we definitely like, of course, as far as it's a prolonged use. I think we can go to the next one. And you can see here a little plan layout of basically the 2 stalls. It does also have a utility closet in it that allows for maintenance of not just the building itself, but also the plumbing if that's necessary. The restroom is, like all of our restrooms in Palo Alto, is locked at 10 p.m. This one will be on a timer. So once the park is closed, the bathroom will lock itself. It has ample ventilation. The flooring is epoxy coated. It's easily cleaned interior. All the surfacing is level and ADA accessible. The exterior's got a graffiti resistant paint on it, low voltage lighting, of course, and it's overall easy to maintain. So now we're going to get into looking at the locations. We have basically 3 locations that staff has reviewed and looked at the possibilities of. Location number 1 was the original location, which is closer to the main entry of the track and field and adjacent to the parking lot that's at Coverly. Location number 2 is close to the track and field, right adjacent to it, but it's closer to Nelson Drive, and this basically allows us to eliminate the lift pump station, which does have extra cost and extra maintenance through the life of the bathroom. Something that we did want to take a look at just to give the community and the commission the option and get some feedback on. Location number 3 is a newer location. This one explored putting the restroom on actually the Coverly property that's owned by the city. We wanted to explore that option as well. So we can talk about that more as we get into the next slide here. So you can see here then location 1, again, the original location that was first discussed is adjacent to the main entry of the track and field. It's also very close to the parking lot. It's fairly centrally located to all the fields that are at that location. Location number 2, you can see closer to Nelson Drive. This allows for the gravity fall of the sewer to the street, eliminating the pump station. And location number 3 is actually on a City of Palo Alto owned land right there. So something that we just wanted to explore just to give some options. Location number 1, per our review, staff feels that this is definitely the most centrally located, seen, makes sense adjacent to the parking lot. The only con really of the location is the addition of the pump station or the lift station for the sewer line. Location number 2 is of course not as visible if you're coming into the parking lot or using the main entry of the track and field. Its pro is basically just eliminating the required lift station for the sewer line itself. Location number 3, like I said, is on city-owned property. Both 1 and 2 locations are on school district property. So we've had conversations with them and they're okay for allowing a bathroom to be installed there. They see the benefits of it as well and would like to have that facility out there. Location number 3 would also require a lift station. Its benefit is being on City of Palo Alto land. And if you can see the 3 buildings that are basically above location 3, the kind of the white roof that are there, the center building at the end closer to the top of the screen is where the current restroom is now that's opened on the weekends that people are also using. So technically that is kind of the field users restroom for Coverly. You can see it is quite a fair distance away, but in proximity to location number 3, is it far enough away? It's something that can be discussed further. Just a little bit about the pump station, because the sewer line basically doesn't have a gravity fall where it can't naturally fall down the pipe, requires basically that it's pumped to a higher position so then it can basically then fall out. Of course, the key word in that whole thing is there's a pump. Pumps aren't meant to last forever, so there will be continuous maintenance of repairing that pump. There also is further design costs that are associated with it as far as the design goes and overall maintenance of it. And then there is the problem of when the power goes out, the pumps go off, what happens during that time when it's not. Usually the capacity of the actual dry well that the pump is drawing from has a fairly large capacity, but if it's out for a few days, then that could become problematic. Like I said, we did do a community input survey that was online. It was very simple. It was basically 3 questions and really just kind of boiled down to 1 question, mostly if you preferred the location of number 2 or not. The advertising or promotion of the survey was done through email. So emails were sent out to the field user groups, which is quite a large number, as well as the surrounding neighborhoods around Coverly. A total of 388 respondents input what choices they would like to see there. That is quite a high number for a community survey. So I think we did fairly well of getting that information. You can see then the breakdown there with 363 field users and 146 neighbors. 7 tenants of Coverly also responded. And then of those, 246 of those were Palo Alto residents. And overall, the community is very supportive of having a restroom there. They would like to see that happen. It's mostly now just about finding that location that is acceptable. You can see here, this was the online survey. You can see the survey questions there. It did include some images of the restroom and what it would look like in a location number 2, how it was basically tucked in kind of to the planting area there. We can go to the next one. So basically then what we're looking at here is then the results of each one of those questions. The first 2 are more demographic questions about if you live in Palo Alto or use the fields. The third question, of course, was if you liked the restroom at that particular location. That was basically the question that we had. Were you okay with that location number 2? The majority of the respondents said yes, 73. We did have 104 no's. Just by looking then at the no's and seeing the number of residents, neighbors adjacent to it, we estimate that the majority of the residents that are adjacent to it in mostly the Green Meadow neighborhood were not in favor of that location and would rather have it in location number 1. Since that survey, the school district has actually installed a temporary restroom facility in the back of Coverly next to the gym. It looks more like a trailer system. It is a 6-stall restroom, and it is only for school district staff, not for the public at all. Even though it has caused great confusion, and a lot of people have called me asking me if that's the restroom and when we can start being able to use it. They also have expressed interest that the size of it, being a 6-stall, is very nice. So, and understanding that there is a high volume of users at the field, especially on the weekend, there is the possibility that we can increase the size of the restroom to a 4-stall. Which we've looked at and staff feels would probably be a good idea to do. The overall project schedule, I did want to briefly touch on the master plan, the Coverly master plan that was conducted a few years ago. The current master plan, the athletic fields and the track and field, basically in all those plans remain exactly where they're at now. So we don't see any change of that in the future. The building that we are proposing is a prefabricated building. So in the future, if it was in the way of future development of the site, there would be the possibility of moving it around, which gives us some flexibility. And instead of waiting for the whole Coverly plan to come along, the restroom is needed now. So we would like to move forward with it now, since we're unclear exactly when the development of Coverly or redevelopment will occur. The restroom itself takes between 10 to 12 months to construct. So even though we may go out to bid and get moving on the project, technically, they're really not going to start doing any work out there probably until the 8th or 9th month mark. I would say it's going to take about 30 to 60 days to set the pad and all the utilities for the restroom. Once the restroom comes, it's set in one day. The next day, they actually hook up the utilities and the bathroom is operational. So that aspect of it is fairly quick. Mostly the time is just waiting for the restroom to be produced and shipped to us. If we continue with the pace that we're on now, we would like to, go out to bid fairly soon and hopefully install the restroom next summer. At this time, I'll take questions and comments from the commission.
Thank you, Peter. Appreciate the report. In a moment, we'll have an opportunity for members of the public to speak on this. If you're joining us via Zoom, please raise your hand. If you're in person, please make sure you fill out a speaker card. In the meantime, we'll first go to the commission for clarifying questions. These are not comments. We'll make comments after we've heard from the public. Any clarifying questions from commissioners? Nellis?
Yeah, I just have one on, good job in the presentation. Thank you. When you talk about the pump for, I guess, for whichever option it is that a different structure as well? For either whether it's option one or option two?
It's not like a building structure per se, but it is basically a 4x4, usually in size by 6 to 8 feet deep. Basically a pit that's next to it that has a steel grate basically over it that sits adjacent to the restroom. So
is there a noise factor, environmental, those types of things associated with that?
no environmental factors unless it fails or overflows, of course. The noise, I would say, is fairly minimal. It does have a steel lid on top of it. I don't know what the decibel would be, but I doubt that you could hear it.
So either one of the two solutions require one's underground, but one is above ground, right? I mean, say if we went with option two, which is.
So option 1 and 3 require the pump. Option number 2 does not. It is pushed farther or as far back from Nelson as it can be to still have a positive flow down to the sewer.
Okay, but that's underground, not
It's
above.
yeah,
Okay.
exactly.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, I have a question about, you said if there's an electricity stops for some reason, then the pump doesn't work. Is there a way that the doors can be locked automatically if there's no power?
That probably would be the preferred method of treating it. There are options of having backup battery systems for the pump. Just basic cost and maintenance, of course, of the battery systems for it. So I would say that if the pump system, which does have an alarm on it, does go off and is off for a period of time, then the bathrooms will probably be closed at that time. And we probably would look at doing some type of temporary facility there until it was repaired.
Okay, thank you. Where do people go now?
Where do they go now? Well, I think the majority of them actually go and use the restroom in Cubberley, in that central building there, basically the old bathrooms that are there, the school bathrooms. There is, like I said, one portable next to the track and field. It's just a portable bathroom. It's not nice. I do know and have been told several times that the perimeter of the fields and the bushes are areas where people go.
Yikes.
So
Okay.
that is happening as well, which is another reason why we would like to have a bathroom just for the sanitary purposes.
I know that last month there were 2 portables at the site by the field. I don't know if that's still the case, and it certainly seems like a good idea. My experience is that those portables are well used.
Definitely.
And certainly there's a lot of people that don't know about the existence
Right.
of the bathroom.
Yeah, and I'm actually unaware, I don't know if Darren can provide more input on the portable there. That's something that community services provides.
Yeah, that's correct. Adam Howard from Recreation has arranged for the portable toilets, and not too long ago, given the delays in us being able to move forward with this project, got a second restroom there.
So,
And that's definitely a good thing. We should definitely be keeping that there until we have a better solution.
my last question.
Yes.
The illustrations don't show lighting. Are you planning on having lighting? And if so, can we see the design? Because the lighting at Mitchell over by the pickleball and tennis courts is way overlit and needs to be adjusted. So just take that as a comment. But for this, lighting should not be available when the bathroom is closed, and should really be careful on what kind of fixture you use. So I'm happy to provide more information. But
Yeah, I don't have
I think we're getting any comments here.
oh,
Yeah.
okay. Sorry.
Andy, you have a clarifying question?
I do have a question. Darren, could you go back to the map and just put the pointer where the bathrooms are now that as part of Cubberley that the field users use? And you said the middle of the middle white building?
Yeah, the middle white building, but at the far end, up at the
At the
top,
far end.
basically is where.
And then what about the bathrooms that are in the pavilion?
I don't know if those are open on the weekends. They might be sometimes.
If somebody's
and-
using the pavilion, then they are
Right.
open and they get a
So
lot of-
yes, then I'm sure that they're finding their way. I know that I've been told that that bathroom on the end is the main one that the field users buy
Okay.
the custodial services there, and that it's open on the weekend. The other ones definitely could be open, and I'm sure that they're being used. The portable right now is fairly close to location number 1. So
Darren,
that's
could
there.
could somebody put the pointer where the pavilion is, please? Oh, okay, got it. Thank you. Thanks.
And why don't you also point out where the restrooms are on the city property?
Yeah.
Thank you. Any more clarifying questions from commissioners?
On the, so if you look at doubling the size, I guess, if you said 2 and looking at 4, does that also increase the size of the pump itself? And another question to that would be, are there any other cities that are using the pump? And then what's been the track record, I guess, on reliability and how, I think you mentioned that when they go down and they're down for a while. So that's a concern, I think.
Usually the pump lasts somewhere between 5 or 15 years. I would say that the restroom is going to be heavily used, so we probably would err on the lower side of that. The fixing of the pump is fairly straightforward. It is done all the time. As far as Palo Alto goes, we actually don't have very many lift stations. As far as public restrooms go, we have 1 that's at the golf course as a lift station. This building actually has one of our other lift stations in it. And I think there's 1 more. I'm not quite sure where that location is. From a maintenance staff standpoint, it seems like around 10 to 15 years is basically the life of the pump at those at City Hall. Basically, the golf course restroom has not been there long enough to really know. The engineering of the pump will be done based upon the number of stalls. So I imagine that it will be a little bit larger if it was 4 stall. Usually what happens is that there are 2 pumps in the setup. So when one fails, there is another backup that's there, but it's mostly for backup purposes. So there definitely will be, a little bit more cost with a larger restroom facility, I would say.
And you mentioned that there is a structure that would be adjacent to the restroom. So I guess if you're using 2 pumps, then the footprint of that increases as well.
Usually the size of the actual vault that's there remains around the same size. So a 4x4 and maybe increased to a 5x5 in size, but and it is at ground level. So mostly it looks like it's a crawl space under a structure, basically, is what it kind of looks like there. It's got a curb around it and a steel top. So
I have a couple questions regarding the potential of a 4-stall restroom. What are the budget implications for this, and what are are there any extended delivery and installation implications?
The construction of the restroom takes roughly the same time, so that 10 to 12 months would be the same for a 2 or a 4.
And delivery as well?
Yes. And it does have definitely additional cost. It's for, again, the larger expanded restroom and the larger lift station adds $250,000 basically to the project budget. So I guess we have 480 plus 250 would be the overall cost of the 4-stall.
So it's roughly 50% more.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. As far as finding a location where a lift station would not be needed, where there's zero gravity flow. Is there any other option to consider on the Coverly site besides option number 2 that we're not looking at right now? And part of this question as well, is there that would be a connection to the sewer line on Nelson Drive. Is there any location within the Coverly campus where a sewer line connection would be possible and would offer the option of not needing a lift station?
Currently not within the campus. Now there is not. So the sewer line does come, I guess, at the corner. Yeah, I'm gonna go over here real quick. Basically, right in that location that's being shown now on the plan is where the sewer ends. And it's very shallow there. So we did explore moving it up into the parking lot more. But you'd pretty much almost have to move it all the way right against that building to make it work. The other drawback is that sewer line is, I don't know how old. So it would mostly require that the entire sewer line, which basically runs there and then it turns out through the plaza and goes under the library and goes out to Embarcadero, would have to be changed. And that is a spendy little item to do. So as far as pushing it that way, there is not a feasible way that we found. The easier location was along Nelson Drive because there is a sewer line that runs basically down there. Location number 2 puts it adjacent to that main entry walk that you access basically the fields over there. So, you know, if you're coming from that side, you basically have to walk by it at that point. We don't see really anything else along that edge over there since it's all fields basically, unless you get all the way down towards the upper part of this image to where the other access drive is, but that's a good distance away from actually the track and field and the 3 baseball fields that are there. So really for that lift station purposes, I think location number 2 was the most optimal.
Thanks, I appreciate that. And I didn't quite understand the bit about needing to go out to Embarcadero to get a connection.
That's the way that the sewer runs now. So the sewer line that runs basically from that corner, and in that building that's there is where the old, I guess, gym aspect was, showers. So yes.
So you mean Middlefield? Not,
oh, Middlefield,
right,
excuse me,
okay,
Middlefield,
thanks.
not Embarcadero.
Thank you, Vice Chair.
Embarcadero would be that would be even further.
I wasn't seeing it. All right, thank you. And now let's move to members of the public to give them opportunities to speak. Anybody who's with us online, please make sure your hand is raised, and or you've turned in a speaker card here. About how many speakers do we have?
I had 9 hands raised between in person and online.
Okay, given the number, let's try to limit comments to 2 minutes each. And please feel free to reference comments of other speakers who have spoken before you. No need to restate what they may have already eloquently stated. We'll start with Ken Knox, followed by Sonia Bradsky. Welcome. Excuse me.
Yes.
I don't think we're getting you through the mic.
Can you hear me? Okay.
Yes.
Better, yes.
And so good evening, and I'm Ken Knox, president of the Green Meadow Community Association. I'm actually not here speaking in an official capacity because we haven't had a membership vote on this subject, but I am very active in the community and on our neighborhood email list, and I think I can present opinions of our residents as I understand them. So Green Meadow is a neighborhood that borders Coverly Fields on the Nelson Drive side. We all support the restroom for the field users, but we have major concerns with the proposed location. The location number 2 at Nelson. It's very close to Nelson and our homes. We think it may attract non-field users, possibly vehicle dwellers, which we've had parking on that street many times before. It could cause people to park on Nelson and cul-de-sacs just to be closer to the bathrooms. I've heard you say it's an entrance to the field, but we don't think that Nelson should be the entrance to the fields. I mean, it should be from the parking lot. People certainly use it, but it should not be the main one. So it's going to cause additional traffic and parking on Nelson, and it's already a major issue, and actually kind of a safety issue too. It's also possible that these things could emit odors and be unattractive, and I'd say that goes double if we double the size of it. All these concerns. It's quite a walk from the parking lot and many field users. A location close to the parking lot is preferred. In fact, like you were saying, it was the preferred location in the 2018 presentation. There are utilities present in the portable buildings at the north end of the track. I understand that it's not ideal, but maybe it could be made to work. And also near the Coverly building. And then I think possibly also at the Friends of the Palo Alto Library building at the other end of the field. The restroom could be built on a raised platform that could allow a gravity feed to go a farther distance. So what if you raised it 2 feet on a platform? You could be that much farther away, possibly all the way to the grandstands, which would be a better location. I do have a satellite view that I can give you guys. I also submitted it with the my written email statement, and it shows the location that I'm talking about. So in summary, the Green Meadow neighbors support a restroom at a location further away from Nelson. We ask that city engineers investigate the suggested locations at or closer to the parking lot. And we understand that it may incur additional engineering and project costs, but ultimately will be the best for Coverly Field neighbors and users. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Sonia Bradsky, followed by Gary Bradsky.
Yeah, hi. Thank you all for serving the city of Palo Alto. My name is Sonia Bradsky, and we actually live right next to Coverly. So that bathroom would basically be in my front yard. And we have had problems with homeless people actually that have been camping in front of my house with trailers. And this will actually be a place for the homeless people to start using the bathrooms in front of my house. So I'll start having homeless people in front of my house. So, and if there is a bathroom at Nelson, it would be further for the soccer people to go to the bathroom. Where the current porta potty is, it's much more centrally located for those soccer people. We already have so many people parking on Nelson, so it would encourage more people parking on Nelson instead of using the parking lot. Speaking personally about sewer lines, our neighborhood was built in 1954 in Green Meadow, and that sewer line actually is pretty old too. It has not been replaced. So if you're thinking that our sewer line is newer than the one at Coverly, it is not. So you're dealing with an old sewer line also on Nelson. And I can attest to that because we've had backups at my house, and I've had to replace my own sewer line now twice, and the sewer line hasn't been replaced on Nelson. So anyway, I'd prefer that you use the bathroom or whatever, that you place the bathrooms where the porta potty is, or there's actually a portable for the library that probably has some type of bathroom in there. I'm not exactly sure, but the library has a portable that is on the other side of the fields. So that's something else to look at. But anyway, I hope that you do not put a bathroom in front of my house. Thank you.
Next speaker is Gary Bradsky, followed by Heidi Voltmer.
Hello, I'm Gary Bretsky, Sonia's husband. Yeah, we faced that and not particularly happy with the location too. Again, we support it. There's several reasons. First of all, as far as I remember, and I didn't get a look at that survey, but it was a bias survey saying, do you support it in this location, not what location? And it was a survey was a thing posted on the fence. So of course you're going to get a bunch of the people coming in there. They're just going to click yes. They don't live there. They don't pay the taxes there. So I think that survey should be disregarded. In any case, it was done for the 2-bathroom. Now there's more congestion, and then maybe our neighborhood's more aware of it. So maybe it should be done, at least redone for the 4-bathroom, and maybe a little more awareness in the neighborhood about this. As far as like the existing Coverly bathrooms, it's already getting its use, and that sewage line is already supporting the current use, right? You're not going to get more use. You're just going to displace exactly where it's from. So I don't believe that it's not possible to use a gravity flow into Coverly, because we're not talking about increasing the sewage. We're talking about people going, maybe it's 50 feet or 70 feet, I don't know, distance away. The other thing is, it's a facility that's in our face. It's blocking that path. If I can get this up, I just took a picture. This is tonight. We're going to see someone there. It's just a random picture, but if I can, well, you can't see it, but not particularly a soccer night. And there's already like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 cars just there. That's a very low use, and normally low. So you got this whole crowd, and now you're going to add it to that spot. And I guess, and finally, when we say, oh, we don't want homeless there, we've had a lot of homeless. They've made problems. I'm talking a stabbing in the tennis court, meth dealing, not just they're homeless, but it built up. And so, we have reasons for not wanting that to become.
Thank you.
Okay.
Next speaker is Heidi Voltmer, followed by Elizabeth Alexis.
Hi, this is Heidi Voltmer. Can you hear me okay?
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Yes.
First, I would like to just thank you again for offering this via Zoom. I had a child's basketball game, school pickup this evening, and I'm just barely getting home and trying to cook dinner. So thank you for this. I am a Green Meadow resident. Been here since 1999. In addition, I'm also a parent of a former, 7-year Palo Alto soccer player, Palo Alto Soccer Club. And I would like to say, both as a resident and as someone who is very familiar with Coverly and the usage of the fields for soccer, I truly believe that the best spot for these restrooms is to have them in location 1, not on Nelson Drive. This is the place where all of those young people and their parents coming for whether soccer, softball, whatever else, even baseball, we did Palo Alto Little League for 2 years. That is where they are parking, and having a bathroom there will be much more convenient. I know some people referenced having young children in the past. If you've ever been with a small child who needs to go to the bathroom, I don't want to walk from the parking lot all the way over to Nelson. So you should put the bathroom in the spot where it will be used, where it will be of benefit not only to the people who are there, but will also be in the right spot in making the overall neighborhood and area most pleasant and again most useful. I understand this costs more, but it's better to do the right thing and spend the money in the beginning than have to fix it later. So again, I strongly encourage you to put the bathroom where it will be of use for the many people who use those Coverly fields, which is at the Coverly parking lot, not on Nelson. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Elizabeth Alexis, followed by Penny Elson.
Good evening. I am also a Green Meadow resident, and I have a couple of quick comments. First, I do have a question about the facility that the school district just put into the parking lot. They appear to have tied into Cubberley sewage sort of more in the center, like by that building that looks sort of like a diamond compared to the other buildings. Is it possible to connect to something like that with location number 3? The second question would be, if this is for the teachers, I assume that they are not working on the weekends. Is there any way we can make an arrangement with the school district to use that facility, at least for the next 2 years, on the weekends at least? I do want to speak in favor of either sites 1 or 3. My objection to site number 2 is a little bit different maybe than what everyone else is saying. It is, I know one commissioner spoke about not having too much light. Well, that is not the problem in this location. The entire pathway from the parking lot to where location number 2 would be is not lit at all at night. It's extremely dark and is a little creepy because there's sort of all sorts of bushes and stuff between the track and that pathway. And so I think if you were to put it there, you would have to actually light up the entire pathway. And so that cost should be taken into account. I mean, I think for that reason, it's location number 1 or 3, which would be able to use the light of the parking lot and be, I think, a safe and more comfortable place for users of the track to go in the evenings. Makes a lot more sense. That's just something I haven't heard in the presentation. It is very, very, very dark at location number 2 in the evenings. And that whole pathway is actually quite dark. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Penny Olson, followed by Rebecca Marasco.
Penny, you've been unmuted.
Thank you. Can you hear me okay? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. So I have a couple comments and then some questions. Thanks for reviewing this. Had the city and the school district gotten to a workable plan with Cubberley with one of the previous planning processes, we wouldn't be planning for prefab public toilets on a neighborhood street. There probably would be planned buildings near the fields for equipment storage and proper restrooms attached to a new sewer line that would connect with a refurbished or new community center facility. Long-term neglect of Cubberley is leading to expensive, suboptimal, one-off, repeated solutions to problems. If you have not walked Cubberley recently, I encourage you and invite you to join me for a tour of the facility. I don't live next to the proposed toilet, so I'm not directly affected by it, but here's some context from my perspective as a Green Meadow resident. This public toilet is going to serve hundreds of field users who come from all over the city and region to play sports on the fields. I support it. We need it. It will be paid for with tax dollars, which Green Meadow residents contribute to. And so little has been done to Cubberley recently. This I think is an important improvement. I am intrigued by the suggestion that we might lift the new building to eliminate the need for a pump and enable a gravity solution. And I'd like to hear from staff about what they think about that idea. I also am concerned that the proposed location close to Nelson Drive is going to attract traffic to our neighborhood school route. I agree with Heidi Voltmer, parents of young children are going to want to park near the potty so that their kids can go before they go to their soccer practice. And then finally, to the staff's comment about tucking into the trees, this 4-stall toilet it looks like it has an access on the back for the facilities. My question is, how does it tuck into the trees if you need to access from the back, number one, and how many trees are we going to have to take out to fit the four toilet facility next to Nelson Drive? I would ask you to please consider the location to the east, and I miswrote this in my comments to you, to the east of the bleachers, location 1. Thank you so much. And
thank you, Penny.
To hear your comments.
Next up is Rebecca Marasco, followed by Yudi Deng.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep.
Oh, great. My name's Rebecca, and I also live in Green Meadow. And I wanted to allude to Ken's point earlier is that we do have a very active community, and there have been lots and lots and lots of emails, and a lot of people maybe sent in letters and couldn't join, but this message is amplified by many people in our neighborhood. I agree with some of the earlier speakers. One thing I do want to highlight and that I don't feel like people have really talked about much is how dangerous it is on Nelson. I don't know why, but a lot of the soccer, and we've talked to the soccer groups and they say, oh yes, we've told all our people to park in Cubberley, but they don't. They park on Nelson, but they don't really park. They kind of half pull over with the car running and kids are jumping out, and there's bikes going by and there's kids and there's cars kind of like almost hitting kids all the time. And so this is something we're trying to decrease as a neighborhood. And I think everybody, for the safety of that area, would like it to decrease. But I feel like putting a restroom closer to Nelson is only going to encourage more people to park there like they're supposed to park there, but that's not where they're supposed to park. So I don't think we want to encourage any more parking. And if anything, encourage people to park in the parking lot closer to a restroom. And people were talking about, like the one restroom at Cubberley. There are like 7 restrooms at Cubberley. And so putting another restroom far away isn't really going to help it. I think putting it close to the fake turf with the track closer is more effective, because there are lots of restrooms, like you said, in the gym, which is much closer than that diamond shaped building that people utilize. So thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Yudi Ding, followed by our final speaker, Samuel Kempton.
Yudi, you've been unmuted.
Let's move on to Samuel Kempton, and Yudi, if you're still with us, give you a chance to speak after Samuel.
Samuel, you've been unmuted.
Thank you, Chair. My name is Sam Kempton. Most of my inputs and concerns have already been expressed, but I would just like to emphasize the raised platform idea. I think this would eliminate the need for a pump and make the future maintenance easier, for sure, and achieve the desired location, which we all been pretty much settled on, which should be closer to the field entry. I think that's number 2. And as I say, would achieve the desired location. I would also like to put in a vote for the 4x4 bathrooms. Soccer is a growing sport, and the field is already pretty heavily used. So that's about all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. And Yudi, if you're still with us, you can give you an opportunity to speak. Otherwise, we'll wrap up public comment on this.
Yudi, you've been unmuted.
Okay, that's going to wrap up public comment on this. Thank you very much to the members of the public who joined us here this evening to speak. We appreciate your input, and for those of you who joined us online via Zoom. An important part of the Parks Commission is being a conduit for public comment, and this is a great to see participation like this. We'll now go to the commission members for comments and questions to staff, and we'll start with a first round, and then we'll follow up comments as needed. Anne, would you like to speak?
Oh, yeah, I could. So my comments are pretty simple. Clearly, we need a bathroom or bathrooms at Cubberley, and we've needed them for a long time. And so I'm really happy to see us moving ahead as fast as we can. I would not be in favor of the Nelson Drive bathroom. I would be in favor of the one that is where the porta potty is right now. I understand that it will cost us more money, but so be it, because we really need the bathroom. And then the second piece of my comments has to do with what can we do from now until the summer of 2024 to help alleviate the situation, whether it's keeping the bathrooms at the pavilion open on the weekends or pulling in more porta potties or trying to do a deal with the school district to use theirs that they have installed. So that's it. But I'm excited that we're at this position, and thank you, Peter, for your comments.
Thank you. Would like to speak next?
Thank you very much for the presentation. Most of my comments and recommendations were already addressed during the course of the discussion. I wonder if the current problem we have in terms of cleaning, I don't know if increasing the frequency of the cleaning in the meantime could add or alleviate the problem that we face. I know you mentioned, people doing it somewhere else. I wonder if increasing the frequency of cleaning and, maybe adding another portable one in the meantime, since we won't be having the installation till next summer. I wonder what we could do in the meantime. So that's my main focus. I don't support the location for Nelson Drive, just because we've heard from residents, and also it's logical that it's going to be a pain for residents, and it's also going to increase traffic around that area as well. I think just like you talked already, it's going to increase the cost, but I think it's worth listening to residents and responding to what the preferences are. So I think the focus should be more on what do we do to alleviate the problem in the meantime. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Kleinhaus.
I also do not support the Nelson Drive location. The light is an issue, and I thank the resident that discussed that. I don't want to have, a structure that then we have to light up the whole area that is now not lit and is expensive. And I was wondering if you can speak to the comments about creating a slope or some kind of elevation that will allow to avoid a pump.
I can. Lifting the structure itself actually does very little to help our situation. The pipe itself has to be buried in the ground. So unless the pipe daylights and just comes out of the ground and goes into the restroom, it really can't do that. So you could get another 6 inches from it if you elevated it a little bit, but it doesn't really help us very much to actually do that. So pretty much you're just basically making a taller pipe coming straight up out of the ground that has to eventually get into the restroom. The only way really to do it would start to create like a raised planter. So the pipe itself, once it does daylight out of the existing grade, is still in soil, but you're talking about a much larger scale project to do something like that. So just lifting the building actually doesn't address our sewer line issue.
Thank you.
Nellis?
Yeah, thank you. And I had most of my questions answered on the clarification point. I do have a question regarding the, could you talk more about the maintenance requirements for, so if we went with the, and I'm proposing, that we definitely go with the four stalls, because again, I missed out on a lot of this, having to, many years ago, with my kids playing soccer and having, no matter where you went, there was always a mad rush to bathrooms that did not exist. So I'm definitely glad to support this, and I definitely support the 4-stall concept and option one, I guess, away from Nelson. But to talk a little bit about the maintenance requirements for if we did go with a 4-stall concept, but you had mentioned that it would cost about $250,000 factored into those numbers. Does that 250 cover the increased size of the pumps and that type of thing?
Yes, it does. The majority of that $250,000 is just mostly the cost of the larger structure itself. It would range between another $20,000 to $30,000 more for the design and implementation of that for a larger basic restroom, as far as the construction aspect of it goes. Besides the maintenance of the cleaned every day. Not the portable restroom because it's rented from someone and they're actually responsible to clean the restroom. But the ones that we do have, like in Mitchell Park or Juanes Briones or Seal, they are cleaned every evening. So we definitely try to keep the restrooms as maintained as possible.
So you also mentioned that they're going to have the locks on them that will automatically lock the doors at 10 p.m. How successful, and I imagine you have those at other locations. How successful have those been, and are they tamper-proof, that type of thing?
I mean, nothing is really overly tamper-proof. If you want to break it, I'm sure that you could. But they have proven to be very successful. We don't have any current complaints of after hours use in those restrooms. The lock mechanism does hold up. The lighting on the inside of the restroom does come on if someone is in there and it is locked. So you can see from the outside that there is someone on the inside. So it does have more security there just in case someone is in the bathroom and is locked in there and decides they are going to stay in there. But yes, overall, we have not had any complaints with the locking system for other restrooms.
And lastly, I guess would be once these 4 stalls are in place, what do you envision, I guess, for the maintenance and I guess what the city staff, how much involvement are they going to have to be? I mean, there's definitely going to have to be cleaning. I would assume that's not something that happens with the porta potties currently there now. So that's an effort that's going to have to be picked up by someone.
No, and it would be treated just like like I was saying before, like our other restrooms. It will be cleaned every day. So at the end of the day, in the evening time, all of our restrooms currently are maintained at night. So this will be exact same way.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Brown.
Yes, just want to thank staff and everybody that came out for this item. Those are enviable community survey numbers for any item, especially a bathroom. And I agree that it's undeniable that there is a need for a designated restroom. And I say that intentionally because while there are other restrooms around at Cubberley, even in the commercial area nearby, bushes that the kids tend to be using, it's important that we have a designated restroom. And I think that the survey numbers, as well as the response to that 6-stall restroom that's been put in by the school district, really bolsters the argument for the 4-stall option. And then that really sort of helps make the decision on the location, because if you're adding additional units and additional traffic, it is worth the additional cost that comes with the location 2 option further in away from the residential neighborhood. So normally I would be a little hesitant at the maintenance costs and the pump and some of the risks that come along with that one, but I think the community has demonstrated the demand for that level of service at this location. And thanks to staff for the great outreach effort on this.
Thank you. Vice Chair Lemare.
Yes, thank you for the presentation. And I think there's certainly a need for a restroom. Can you speak to restrooms at other locations and perhaps problems that we have had with them, or someplace like Hoover Park? Do we have problems with loitering or vandalism, drug use, increased crime? What have we seen in our neighborhood parks or areas where we provide restrooms?
Yeah, I can help answer part of that. Peter may have some as well. There are some where they seem very, very little issues in terms of extra maintenance for associated with vandalism or wear and tear. And then there are some that do have a little more. And El Camino Park is an example, one that has been challenging in terms of vandalism, broken the infrastructure inside. So sometimes extreme things like stall doors torn off the hinges or things like that. Baylands Athletic Center is the other one that I think just gets a little harder use and a little more vandalism, and yet others far less. So I think it is location dependent sometimes, if that helps answer your question.
Thank you. As far as this goes, I would support a 4-stall restroom at location 1. I think to move it away from Nelson Drive, I understand we have to have a pump, but I would be in favor of it in a more central location. And again, certainly a need, but I would also echo one of the speaker's comments in terms of kind of our suboptimal and inefficient solutions that result from an inability for our city and school district to get together and figure out what we're doing with Cumberly. And this has been ongoing for a number of years, and we're piecemealing things together, and we have a facility that is breaking down. And while I am very supportive of a restroom, I am more supportive of our city and our school district finding some better solutions for that property that is such a treasure for our community. Thank you.
Thank you to the commissioners for their comments. Thank you to staff for a presentation. I have a number of questions and comments. I'll start by following up on the vice chair's comments about Coverly. If the city and school district had been able to move forward with a redevelopment plan for Coverly, would the situation be much different for us, given that the field areas wouldn't be redeveloped as part of the plan, and what type of would there be sewer infrastructure improvements that would help this along? And part of the question is related to we're talking about going in with a lift pump. We don't know how long. We don't know if and when Coverly will be. Or it's got to be not the if. Hopefully, we don't know when Coverly will be redeveloped. So we don't know what the time horizon is for how long we're living with this the pump situation.
I would say that a extensive renovation of the Coverly site would definitely include the upgrades of all the utilities on site, the sewer and electrical and water, for sure, that would feed the restroom. When that is implemented at some point in the future, I think that there's definitely the possibility to reroute the sewer system to connect to that new infrastructure that could eliminate the pump. That's definitely an option to do. It wouldn't be difficult to do. But yes, the future development of Coverly would definitely have an impact, and most likely a positive impact on the restroom and removing the pump, if not the whole restroom itself, and just having a restroom closer in a building. So I think that all those options are plausible for sure.
But thanks. That's helpful to hear. I think there's no disagreement or dispute that we do need additional restroom capacity at this location. The community supports this. The neighbors support this. We've been working on this for a long time, and we've been waiting for this for a long time. So we need to come up with a solution that we can move forward with without even moderate additional delay. And obviously we need to replace the existing portable restrooms. It's great that we got such a outstanding response from the public survey. It really is kind of unusual numbers. We're used to a lot of, we know there's a lot of public surveys and public outreach that doesn't work as well. So that's great. Would appreciate if the commission were looped in more directly into the process. We really didn't get much visibility into what was going on with this until really the staff report, and we do have a restroom liaison. So it'd be good to make sure that the commission is looped in moving forward. I think we would all agree that a less expensive, lower maintenance gravity flow solution is the preferred option. But the location is important, and it doesn't sound like there is a viable location for this, except for site number 2. I do agree with the rest of the commissioners. I think it's we're unanimous in agreeing that the site 30 feet from Nelson, it doesn't fly. I know when we talked about this before and we're looking at a second site, we were thinking in discussions it would be much further away from Nelson, 100 feet or more, near the entrance to the stadium on the Nelson side. That seems like that could be a workable option, but that doesn't support zero gravity flow. So even raising that 2 feet and having a raised area in the fence behind the fence in the green belt on the stadium, that wouldn't be a viable option.
I mean, again, you'd have to raise the elevation of the soil in the area where the daylighted, and that would just add cost of a raised planter wall and would have impact on the existing trees that are there. They would
appreciate that.
Those would have to be removed probably to do that. So it's more difficult, definitely.
So as far as the location, it's got to be adjacent to fields. It can't be across the parking lot. It's a safety issue. We're talking about kids wearing cleats, whether they're playing soccer or they're playing baseball or softball. Scurrying across paved areas is not what we're looking for. So I think we can rule out it, considering any option against the buildings, which is where the sewer lines are at Coverly. Nice thought, but that's not going to fly. I agree that the neighborhood concerns for the Nelson Drive option are significant, and we shouldn't consider that option. So I think we should be looking at the original location where we started, circling back at number 1. As far as 2 stalls versus 4 stalls, I'd really like to understand what the budget implications are for this, particularly with respect to timing. You know, do we have budget to move forward with the 4 stall option right now, or is that going to result in a delay?
I'm going to have to get back to you on that. I believe that staff has requested the additional $250,000 in the next fiscal year budget, but that has not been approved yet. So I don't think that money is there right now. But from what I've heard is that we should be allowed to get that amount.
So if we had to wait for next fiscal year's budget, we're talking about delaying the project 6 months?
I don't think that there would be any delay. I think within that 6 months that we would go through all our design and permit process, and then at that point be ready to go out to bid just like we would if.
Is there any downside to going with the 4-unit restroom that we should be considering?
I don't believe so. No, just based upon the capacity of the field and the number of users out there, I think that it behooves us to have a little bit more robust and bigger unit out there.
I recognize we could do outreach to the field users and stakeholders, but it's hard to imagine why they would not want, if we're saying, would you like 2 or 4?
It seems from the survey information and the feedback that we've got from the community and the field users that first and foremost, they want a bathroom no matter what. And I think that they would be supportive of having a larger bathroom as well.
Well, I support it if it doesn't change the timeline. Any commissioners have further follow-up comments or questions?
Yeah, I was just going to, in tagging on what you were saying about the difference between a 2 and a 4. It's better to go with what we think is the right thing to do now. I think you mentioned that it was like 500 to 750 visitors over a weekend period. That number is only going to grow because I think we're encouraging people in our city to take advantage of being outside, being healthy, exercising. You know, I think that Darren talked about, you know, having additional soccer classes and so forth. So why kind of shortchange ourselves now with 2 stalls when 2 years from now we might be at the same situation? So I think let's go with do the right thing up front and move forward with it.
Right. Well, we feel the same way too. And I would say that our numbers of 500 to 750 is a very conservative number. We feel that there's probably is a lot more. It could be double that amount. There has been no one has stood out there and actually done a survey of the users out there, but just by the number of teams and how it's programmed, we can kind of get a rough estimate of what those numbers are. And like I said, that is a conservative number. So we do feel that there is more. I would like to address actually a couple of things too, just for the commission, because of Coverly and it not technically being park land. Normally we would come back to you with a park improvement ordinance that you would actually vote to recommend to council to do this. But because it's not on parkland, that's why there is no formal vote or recommendation. I would also like to thank the members of the Palo Alto Neighborhood Association, PAN. They have been very effective at dispersing information, especially mostly how that's done is I draft an email and I send it to the head of the Green Meadows Association, and they email it out to their entire email list. And that has been very effective as getting people. As you can see, 388 people is a good amount of people for a survey. Usually if we get 20, that would be amazing. So 388 is pretty awesome. So I'm continuing to work with them too, to make sure they do have a list of all the representatives, trying to keep that up to date as possible, because we do, and I use it quite a bit now. It definitely is a much easier way to get information out there. It's not an email coming from myself or a city, it's someone from their neighborhood. So people tend to respond to that more. So I do thank the representatives for taking their time and for forwarding my emails out. So that's definitely helpful for community feedback.
Thank you. Vice Mayor Stone, any comments you'd like to make?
No, not at this time. It has been a good conversation to listen to, but just trying to keep an open mind and appreciate the questions and all the comments from the public.
Thank you. Any other commissioners? Well, thank you again to the members of the public who joined us this evening and stuck with us. Thank you to staff for all the work we've done on this, and thank you to the commission for their comments. I really hope we can do something, and it's been a long time coming. Let's not lose our momentum here.
Definitely. Thank you. Thank you, Commission.
Thanks, Peter. Our next item is the Aquatics Annual Report.
Thank you, Chair. Sharon Eva, who works as a community services manager and works closely with Tim Sheeper Incorporated, couldn't be here tonight. So I'd like to introduce Tim Sheeper with Tim Sheeper Incorporated and Palo Alto Swim and Sport. Thank you for being here, Tim. Please take it.
Oh, thank you, Darren. I guess Sharon didn't pass on the little screenshot she had to you.
I did not. Do you have it, Javon? Okay. Is this the full presentation, Tim, that you're speaking of, PowerPoint?
No, it was just one.
Oh.
It was just one, but I get no issue.
I think Javon's got it.
Oh, okay. Okay. Well, thank you. Thank you, commissioners. And I can describe 2022 as a rebuilding to baseline year for us. So as far as the basic operations, we had really high satisfaction from our patrons in categories such as safety, administration, communications, water quality, and facility cleanliness. Then as far as programming goes, like this slide depicts, we had great success in returning to baseline in our lap swimming program and our summer camps. We had moderate success returning to baseline with our open swim and our masters swimming. And then we had minimal success in returning to baseline with our youth swim lessons. And that leads into our 2023, our basic goals in 2023 are focusing on increasing our staff numbers, and increasing our lifeguard staff numbers will directly relate to increasing the amount of open swim hours that we could have during this spring and summer and the early fall. And then really focusing on our swim instructor numbers, which will directly translate into increasing our swim lesson offerings. And we are already in full swing with that. We've hired on new leadership staff. We've restructured our programming and our content, and we're already training instructors now in January as we start building into the spring for when the pool is refurbished and reopened. And then we're focusing on a great, strong summer offering as well. So that just kind of wraps up 2022 in a nutshell. And I'm open and anxious to answer any questions that commissioners may have regarding our 2022 year.
Anne, as our swimming liaison, would you like to start off?
Yes, I
Excellent.
could. Tim, it's nice to see you. Thank you so much for all the numbers and all the data that you presented. It was great reading all of that. And I, for one, am always glad to see our swim program doing well in the community. I'd like to start off with just an anecdotal. Two of my close neighbors who know that I'm on the Park and Recreation Commission.
Excuse me, Commissioner Cribbs. Sorry to interrupt you, but I realized I forgot to ask if there are any members of the public who'd like to speak on this item.
Okay.
And if there is anybody who's with us in person or online, please raise your hand or fill out a speaker card. And it looks like we're good to go. So sorry for the interruption.
That's okay. It's a short anecdote anyhow. Two of my neighbors both swim in the lap swim, and they have repeatedly commented how friendly the lifeguards are, how well managed the swim is, how much they love to come no matter what time of day it is. And it's just a really great program. It has a lot to do with the supervisors, Tim, I think, and also just the lifeguards themselves. So thank you very much for creating that atmosphere. I'm only interested in a couple of things to ask questions about. One are the swim lessons and increasing the numbers of people that we're providing swim lessons to, just because swimming is so incredibly important. And I know that, Tim, you care about that a lot too. As part of that, are we able and are we needing to give scholarships to any of those children who want, or adults who want lessons? And then could you also spend a little time talking about the cost of senior lap swim?
Sure. So the first one about swim instruction and and scholarships. So we have a foundation in place that is able to cover any of our swim scholarships that is needed in the community. That has not been the issue. So it's BBAF is the foundation, and they're in their nearly this is their 11th year of operation just in the Menlo Park, Palo Alto, and in the Bay Area and we give swim lessons, and the end user is just paying $5 for their swim, regardless of what the cost is for their group lesson. That's all the family has to pay. And that is not the issue. It's finding the instructors to give the lessons, and that's where our challenge is. But we've been able to alter the equation a little bit and just really heavily recruit new instructors in the area, and just really increasing the hourly rate that we pay has enabled us to really build our team back up. So we're at this time of the year, we're already around 18 swim instructors. And then as far as the senior fees for lap swimming, next week will go into effect where there is going to be a reduction in the monthly membership for the resident senior lap swimmers.
Good. I appreciate that. I know that you all said that you were going to work on that last year, and I'm really glad to see it coming to fruition. Last thing, and then I'll let somebody else have the floor. Tim, you're going to close the pool because we're going to replaster, drain it and replaster, right?
Yes.
And there's absolutely, as you know it, and I believe you, no opportunity to shave a couple inches off the ends of the pool.
Yes, and I think you and I have had a discussion on this, and we brought in Public Works, and that was a decision made by Public Works and the engineers there, because the walls have already been shaved, and any more would disrupt the integrity of that wall on the pool.
Yeah, well, I thank you very much for explaining all that. I'm sorry we can't do it because it would be a great benefit to competitive swimmers, but so be it. Thank you. Thanks, Tim.
Yeah.
And Ann, can you just clarify why you're asking about that?
Why I'm asking?
Yeah.
Because right now, as it stands with the new equipment that US Swimming makes you use so that they can so you can break a record. The pool is too short with the touch pads that have to go into the pool. So touch pads were not invented when Rinconada Pool was built, and it was built to perfect specifications. But with the touch pads, it makes it shorter. So that's the reason to ask about shaving the sides of the pool. And that would bring more swimmers and more swim meets who are intent, especially on being able to break records. And so it would be a good economic situation for the community and the hotels.
And do we have an idea of what it would cost to make that change?
You can't do it.
Can't do it.
We can't do it because the integrity, the structural integrity of the pool wouldn't take it. It's been shaved already, I understand from Tim and Public Works.
But there's got to be something that something you could do to something major could be redone.
Are you? I'm not so sure what you're asking.
Well, from a and maybe this is a tangent, but maybe we can take this offline.
Thank you, Jeff.
Commissioner Brown, would you like to speak?
Yeah, actually, Tim, you beat me to it. Thanks for the great report and love all of the charts and comparing them to last year as well. Could you just talk a little bit more about staffing and the different recruitment efforts you've made through? It's nice to see the resurgence in the lessons and the capacity, but I'm curious about how you're so successful, and if you could just talk a little bit more in detail about that.
Yeah, well, it's basically just raising the entry level salary for all lifeguards and especially swim instructors, because that's where we suffered the most in the summer of 2022. So entry level swim instructors without any experience now are starting at $23 an hour, and with that cost of entry, we've gone from having one or two trickle in per month to dozens of people coming in. So then we're picking the best and then sending them through a training program that's already begun. And so we're just trying to build up a big stable of instructors. And we teach swim lessons year round in our Menlo facility because of really warm water. And we have the space, and so then we're going to share those swim instructors with Rinconada Pool once we open up in the spring and summertime for lessons. And we've increased the entry level or the entry compensation for lifeguards as well. So with no experience, $20 an hour, and then all the way up to $25 per hour, depending on how many years of service and experience they've had. So that's simply been the factor, the variable that changes the whole calculus of everything.
Sure. Thank you. I remember this time last year, we were worried there was a mass exodus, and would they ever come back, and would we ever get more great talent back? So congratulations and thank you.
Yeah.
Commissioner Vice Chair?
Yes, Tim, thank you so much for everything that you're doing, and glad to see a resurgence in the use of the pool. Quick question, how would you characterize, and if you can talk about the Masters swim program and what is going on with that? I know in the past, especially when you were initially taking over, there was a bit of, I don't know if I call it controversy or concern. And if you can just speak to how you're currently running that and participation and just the overall feel of the master's program and how it's used.
Great. Yeah, thank you. So just to reflect on the past and the issues that were raised at that time, our issue was increasing the safety aspects of the Rinconada Masters at the time, and just trying to introduce some safety factors that were void, and that raised a lot of issues with the team at that time. And then the leadership of that program retired, and so we then took over the responsibility of hiring a coach, training coaches, and then operating the program. So during the pandemic, the team expanded up to a little over 100 swimmers, because we took on a lot of swimmers who were over at Stanford, and when their pool wasn't operational, so they came and used the Palo Alto Masters. And we had for a period of time a solid, strong, growing program. And then as Stanford came back online, swimmers went back to their home pool at Stanford, and then we ended up with about 50 to 60 swimmers, and we've been hovering around that number, right around 50 master swimmers. We have had a lot of, I shouldn't say a lot, but we've had a number of coaching changes as we've been trying to find the right mix of coaching staff, because you have to put around 2 to 3 coaches in rotation to cover those early mornings and afternoon hours, because they only work 1 or 2 hour shifts. And so right now it's stable, but I personally think there's a lot more potential. And once we figure out this, the coaching equation and finding that person with the that it factor and that talent factor, then we'll be up into the triple digits, because I think that's what the community can support. And what we've been able to do is share pool time with the lap swimmers in the mornings and in the afternoons, rather than have just blocked swim time just for masters or just for lap swimmers. So I think it's that shared time that's going to allow the program to expand in due time. So long-winded answer, maybe.
No, thank you for the detail. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Commissioner Kleinhaus? Commissioner Oche?
Thank you for your presentation. I'm glad to see the senior citizen fees for lap swimming will be lowered this year. I'm also glad to see that in the 2022 annual aquatic report, the respondents, had very high percentage satisfaction rates. I'm just curious to know what the number of respondents were for page 4. I know you have it on page 7 broken down in terms of how many respondents. Just out of curiosity, I wanted to confirm.
Total respondents was 196 respondents.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, it's shown, and there's the raw data, and that number shows at the top of the attachment with the raw data from the survey.
Okay, I also wanted to find out from the responses you got to what residents responded to on page 7. So you had like a breakdown for the survey requests?
Yeah.
Yes.
And so that is very typical of what we hear people want, more time, more space. And the wonderful thing about our lap swimming program is, as you've seen from the other charts, is that it's grown much. There's many more monthly members using the lap swim program than it was even before the pandemic. So there's many more people coming to the pool, and the pool's having high usage. And so the lap swimmers are enjoying the program. They have a great experience, and they want more of it. And the greatest thing that we're seeing is people want more time in the evening. And then so there's a little complexity there, and it's not as simple as just giving them that time. There's 2 factors or 2 obstacles that we usually run into, and we are running into with this issue. One is the youth swimming program in place. So it's a legacy program. It's the Palo Alto youth swim team. They call themselves PASA. And it's an impacted program, and it's been impacted for a number of years, maybe greater than 10. It's a high quality program. It attracts a lot of kids from the the neighborhood and the community. And they run out of space on a daily basis. They pack in like 10 plus kids a lane so they could swim. And so they use the pool starting at 4 p.m. and they go all the way into the evening, and they use all the lanes for that 4 hours. And this was pretty much going on prior to our arrival in at the end of 2017. So it's kind of a legacy program. And so altering that schedule is going to come with a lot of ripple effects. But that's, maybe something that's done in the future. That's issue number one of giving or providing the evening lap swim times. The other issue is staffing, because that would require a whole new staff coming in. Let's say if we finished PASA at 7 o'clock instead of 8 o'clock, then we'd have to bring in a whole new staff in to manage the lifeguarding and the customer service, et cetera. Not saying it can't be done, but that's the issues that we're currently dealing with.
Thank you.
Thank you for the report, Tim, and thank you for all of your efforts throughout the year. It's great to see improvements and seeing the recovery from COVID and starting to thrive again. I appreciate the difficulty of getting through that time period. A question regarding the maintenance closure and the 6-week closure for the plastering. What's the impact to your staff? Are you able to move people around to Menlo Park and other facilities? And how common or unusual is a closure of this duration for pools?
It's quite rare. Rare meaning that it doesn't happen very often for this long of time. It's time for the plaster to be repaired. The plaster is so rough, it's been tough on the kids' feet in the play pool, and the sides of the big performance pool is just peeling off and landing on the bottom of the pool. So it is definitely in need of it. And a 45-day minimum closure is very tough on the staff and the operation. So there will be some of our staff that will be able to move over to our pool in Menlo Park, but we will not be able to take and provide hours or duties and responsibilities for the entire staff. So we are still working through that, Jeff, and we're in discussions with this city staff on, if there are options there for us. So we are looking forward to the March 6th for the closing, because it will become a better facility when we reopen. But there are still some unknowns on the other side of that.
Thanks for the answer. It does sound like a difficult situation to work through, particularly as you're looking to expand your staff. Appreciate but it also, I guess the silver lining is coming out with a much better facility to be using every day. Can you elaborate a little bit more on the fee structure modifications that are coming up?
Yeah. So we're trying to return. So we've had a lot of back and forth conversations with a group that they're called the Friends of Rinconada Pool, and they were real advocates for returning to closer to the the fee structure that we had prior to the pandemic. So we raised drop-in prices and we raised monthly prices during the pandemic because lap swimming was the only program that was supporting the whole operation. And with a lot of unknowns during that time, we set the prices and we guessed at the prices, and then we're able to sustain because of that. And then as we're coming out of that and into our new operations for at the end of 2022 and 2023, we saw that we'd be able to survive and keep the company solvent if we reduce the lap swim monthly for the resident seniors. And that was really supported by the Friends of Rinconada pool. And there's going to be, so there'll be more separation from residents to non-residents. And there'll be a greater savings for the Palo Alto seniors.
What will the difference in the rate be in a percentage for residents versus non-residents? Because I believe there might, Darren, you can help me here perhaps, but I thought the maximum limit was 25% difference, and that's what we were using at the Foothills Nature Preserve entrance fee.
Well, I don't have those numbers in front of me right now. Sorry, I'm not prepared for that question, but it's going to be like, it's in the 20% range. So we're dropping the senior resident by a few dollars, regular open adult fees.
I'm all in favor of being able to support the rate reduction and appreciate that the Friends group is supporting this as well. And I think the fact that there's nobody speaking to us from that group this evening speaks to the relationship that you've forged with them. I just want to make sure we're in compliance with any guidelines that we need to be mindful of. So I'll leave it to staff to follow up on that. Otherwise, thank you. Great to hear from you again, and wish you increased prosperity in the coming year. And let's I think as many commissioners have stated already, being able to increase the lessons really is key, and it sounds like we're on track for that. Any follow-up comments from any commissioners or our council liaison or staff?
That's one.
Else?
Yeah, great report. I do want to, I know that you're sort of trying to figure out what the challenge is going to be on the closure in March, I guess you said. And is that about the same time, I guess, where a lot of our other neighboring cities with pools are out there trying to also recruit? And what are you doing to try and keep your staff excited about the new opening so that they do in fact, I guess, remain on board when the facility does reopen?
Yeah, Nellis, well, we've never been through this before, and we are going to move our leadership staff to retain them for sure over to Menlo and just fill in. And some are committed to taking a lot of their vacation time during that period. So the company is just working hard to just hold it together, and then we'll be going on a just a major recruiting blitz. After or during that period for the reopening, and just cross our fingers that the weather is is supportive of a 45-day closure and not an extended closure.
Thank you. Anyone else? Ann?
No, I just would like to thank Tim and the staff and the city staff who works with Tim for all the good work this year, and certainly for this report and all the data. So thanks, Tim.
You're welcome.
Thank you. We'll now move on to our next item, which is the golf annual report.
My chair, while my colleague is getting his presentation ready, my pleasure to introduce Lam Do, who's the superintendent for open space, parks and golf. Thanks for being here, Lam.
Thank you, Darren. If I could have one more moment, please. Chair, would you like me to begin now, or shall I wait for Commissioner Freeman to return?
Go ahead, please.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, Chair Greenfield and members of the Commission. I am Lam Do with the Division of Open Space, Parks and Golf. The following brief presentation is a supplement to the staff report on our golf course performance with a focus on financial performance and operations. This presentation is to be followed by a discussion and a Q&A session. For the discussion, I'm joined by David Hall. David is our General Manager of the Baylands Golf Links. We may also possibly be joined by Matt Malloy, who is the VP of Operations. He is actually traveling though, so he is questionable whether or not he'll be able to join us in between travel. To start, if I could provide a little bit of a background on our current golf course. The former Palo Alto Municipal Golf Course closed in fiscal year 2017 and 2018 for a course reconfiguration. The redesign encompassed all 18 holes. And then upon renovation completion, the course reopened in May 2018 as the Baylands Golf Links. The course redesign was initiated for environmental flood control needs, where 7 acres of the former footprint of the Palo Alto Municipal Golf Course was transferred to the Joint Powers Authority, implementing the flood control measures. At the same time, the course redesign focused for improvements on course play, addressing turf, drainage, and irrigation needs. With the course redesign, we created a golf course that provided more interesting layout for golfers of all levels. In particular, the fairway turf also was chosen as a pass pound grass, which is salt tolerant, allowing for more use of recycled water, addressing environmental needs as well. The course was designed to be a link style course instead of the prior course, which is an up and down play course, a flat, for integration into the local environment being in the Baylands. In May 2018, the course reopened as a municipal course named and renamed itself the Baylands Golf Links. At the same time, we entered into a service agreement with OB Sports to be a full service course management company for us, integrating services focusing on customer and player experience. They offer services with course play, providing practice facilities, providing course maintenance, merchandise sales, and also food and beverage. This was a change from the prior operations, which was 3 vendors, and it was difficult to coordinate services. So Now that we operate with one vendor, we are able to focus on a customer overall player experience, which is essential to the success of the golf course. With a single operator, well-versed in presenting a premier yet public municipal golf course, it's now actually doing well financially for the most part. And taking a look at the financial figures, we have the first full fiscal year upon reopening, we almost achieved an equilibrium between revenue and expenses. We're a little bit shy of that. However, operating at a financial loss that first fiscal year was actually better than anticipated. We were able to, being in the first year, reattract our prior players and also bring new players in. And then in fiscal year 20, where things start to be on the uptick, we actually had a few setbacks. The end of the 2019 season, we had quite a lot of wildfire impact on air quality. We had, I think, about 10 or 15 days in 1 month itself of poor air quality, which really impacted golf play. And then in the spring, we had the COVID-19 shelter-in-place county health order, which really shut down the golf course. And so we lost quite a lot of opportunity to provide the service. We lost a lot of revenue at the same opportunity to earn revenue. So fiscal year 20 could have been a good year, but however, due to this unseen circumstances, we didn't do well financially there. The course itself, however, has rebounded the past 2 years, where we have exceeded $5 million in revenue with about $4 million in expenses. And so the past 2 years have been good for the golf course financially. At the same time, annual rounds of golf played continues to increase over the years. This is reflective in the demand during the COVID-19 pandemic, but it's also reflective of the quality of the course play and the customer experience that our course operator is able to provide. As we consider the number of rounds of golf that continues to increase each year, we want to take a look at who makes up the golfers and where they come from. Keeping in mind that when the course reopened, we wanted to attract players from Palo Alto, and we also wanted to ensure that the golf course was successful by attracting players regionally. So you can see here the past 3 years, Palo Alto residency has increased. Palo Alto player residency, has increased from 29% to 39%. And then regionally, about 46% of players are from all of the other parts of Santa Clara County, and then also San Mateo County. So we've been able to achieve what we set out to do when we reopened the course, which was increase overall Palo Alto residency play, yet at the same time be able to attract players regionally, which is essential to the success of the golf course. Palo Alto residency itself could not support the golf course. So with that, we've been able to achieve that. Next, I'd like to share some awards and some recognition that the Baylands Golf Links has received over the years. In the end of 2021, the course maintenance superintendent was recognized by the Golf Course Superintendent Association of America for high quality play conditions and also at the same time displaying exceptional agronomic and management skills. And then additionally, with over 900 golf courses in California, Golf Week magazine has ranked the Baylands Golf Links 18th, 19th, and 24th, respectively, in the past 3 years among golf courses that are open to the public in the state of California. So that's something that we think is, for the staff itself, it's something that they pride themselves in. When you consider over 900 courses in California, of course, that's a mix of public and private and clubs. But to be ranked 24th currently amongst public courses you can play in today, that's quite something, an achievement itself. Both these two recognitions are contributed to multiple factors. It has to do with the desirability and demand for golf play and the quality of Baylands Golf Links itself. And then before I want to transition to our discussion Q&A session, I do want to address another topic of the golf course that's been addressed with the commission before, and that has to do with the mitigation monitoring. And we discussed it separately with the commission, but I think in this instance here, maybe perhaps I could use this time to update the commission as well. I do have some information that I can update for in our discussions with the State Water Board. We've been in communication with the Water Board. They've given us some direction to follow in regards to how to get ourselves in compliance with mitigation monitoring. We've sent them an inventory that they asked for of what the current conditions are, and then we're waiting for their review. From their review, then we'll be working on initiating and continuing the mitigation monitoring of the golf course. So that's kind of what I have. And then I think what I'll go to next is go to the discussion. And I'm going to ask David Hall, our general manager, to join us as well and begin the discussion. Thank you.
Thank you. If there's any members of the public who'd like to speak on this item, please raise your hand and we'll give you an opportunity to comment. And it looks like we do not have any members of the public looking to speak this evening. Thank you for the presentation. I appreciate it. It's always good news to see numbers in the black instead of the red. So congratulations for that, and look forward to hearing what the commissioners have to say. Would like to start? And I will also actually before we start, I wanted to ask staff just for a little clarification. So the focus of this agenda item is the financial report and the operations of the golf course. We have had other discussions in the past about concerns about mitigations to the natural environment that are part of the golf course. And so to what extent are these appropriate and permitted to speak about on this agenda item? And to the extent that they may not be appropriate, where are we at with it? Where are we with those, and how will we be moving forward?
Thank you, Chair, for your question and comment. You're right. This is probably best that we discuss the operations and financial performance of the golf course. I think we have some general overall questions about the environment and the mitigation monitoring. Perhaps I could answer them on a cursory level. I don't think it would be probably good to go into detail. For detailed discussion, I think we probably want to agendize it or have a more planned discussion separately.
And is further discussion of that tied into discussion on the BCCP, the Baylands Conservation Plan, or is that a separate? I think we have too many mics on, so if commissioners who want to speak can turn their mic off, then.
You're right. Yeah, it would be separate from the BCCP.
Okay. Johnny, want to start?
So I understand that there is no response yet from the water board. I don't know if you also send anything to the Fish and Wildlife or it's the same, but mitigation costs money. I don't think we have you may not have any information about that yet, but I think that the finances may look different next year, maybe. So I hope next year the potential costs of mitigation, if that's only about cost and not about the entire, I actually think that this report should include the environmental issues at the golf course and how the mitigations are advancing and how much they're costing as well. So when you say, oh, I mean, it's nice to see revenue that exceeds the costs by $1 million, but if half of that goes on mitigations, I mean, I have no idea how much it might cost. So I think that's important to include. And also, I don't see why you would separate in the future agenda items. I mean, we need to address the mitigation issue, and that's good to have a separate meeting on that. But in future presentations, I think that everything that had in that the goals had in them, including creating habitat and all the stuff that was there, should all be addressed in these reports.
Thank you for your question, Commissioner. The cost of the mitigation will be brought up as part of the budget process for the future fiscal years that is presented to council and that is to be reviewed and adopted by council. The mitigation and monitoring is at present funded through a capital improvement project. And the capital improvement projects are requested, the funding for them are requested annually. So it will be brought up and it will be reviewed and addressed by the council.
So, okay, well, I guess mitigation is a legal requirement. It's not a capital project that the city has the decision to, yes, we'll do it, or no, we won't. There's a legal requirement to have done them 5 years ago. So I'm not sure how, if you present something and then you separate some of the costs from what you tell us, then we see something that is inaccurate, no?
The capital project is sort of the mechanism of the vehicle to receive the funding. And so I do agree with you that the mitigation needs to be done. It's the mechanism that we're for us to request and receive funding.
It's very confusing to me because can they just say, oh, we don't have money to do it? They can't. It's a legal requirement that they committed to do. So how can they, it's not really something that they can say, oh, this is our capital project. And so we have priorities. We're going to do this one and we're not doing the mitigation. That's already 5 or more years late. So I really don't understand why it would go to capital rather than actually look at the budget of the golf course that was supposed to implement those mitigations.
I think these are important considerations, and I think we look forward to getting more information from staff and back on this in terms of the interplay of the budget for the mitigations funding through CIP and how it ties into the overall golf presentation.
Thank
you. Do you have any other comments, Shani? Thank you. Who'd like to speak next? Ann?
Okay. So first of all,
I'm sorry. How about our golf liaison?
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Are you?
Should.
Who's going?
No,
go ahead.
No.
It's okay.
We should have started with our golf liaison.
Yeah, golf liaison. Hey, thanks. Very good presentation. You actually put together some numbers that I think we're all proud of. The fact that I think you mentioned there was 29% increase in revenues for 2023. That's good. Need to know sort of well, two areas I guess that increased the revenues and also the number of Palo Alto residents who are actually taking advantage of using this facility. Do you have any background information on why both of those have taken place? And because you want to keep that momentum moving forward, right? And with that 10% increase in the Palo Alto users, could be, I know our population's gone up a little bit, but do you have anything to kind of back up why that's happening?
So if I could start, and then I'll ask David Hall, our general manager at Baylands Golf Links. The overall rounds of golf play have gone up for several factors. But I think we all have to acknowledge that the golf industry as a whole during COVID pandemic has seen a favorable uptick and what was thought to be perhaps, it was an immediate lull. All golf courses of the country shut down. And then when golf courses were allowed to reopen, there was an uptick in play that was thought to be temporary, but we've seen it now for 2.5 years, or 2 years would be more accurate to say. And so in talking to golf professionals, they think that there will be a slight downturn in golf play, but that most of the uptick will remain. In regards to the Palo Alto residency, if I could ask my colleague David Hall, perhaps you could provide some insight on that.
Thank you. Yes, Lama is correct in that, kind of during the pandemic, golf saw a big boom, not just here in California, but nationwide. We saw it obviously at Baylands. I think it was a combination of a couple of things. One is the renovation of the golf course and the excitement of that. Many players, even today, still have not, that have played the old Palo Alto Municipal, still have not played Baylands. I hear that pretty frequently at the golf course. But COVID was definitely a factor in that uptick in golf nationwide. And we, as an industry, expect the level to come down a little bit, to recede a little bit from that high. However, not dropping to the point where it was pre-pandemic. So we'll still have more golfers nationwide, active golfers than pre-pandemic. So.
Thank you.
Commissioner Cribbs.
Thank you. Thanks for the report, Lam. And I think some of this has to do with the popularity and the reputation of Baylands now. I'm involved with golf on sort of a more statewide basis in the National Senior Games, and there is a lot of conversation among senior golfers about coming to Palo Alto and playing on the Baylands course. And so I think that is a good thing. So even if we decline a little bit next year because of the popularity and the reputation of Baylands, I think it's going to be really good. So kudos about that. I guess at some point, will we hear some conversation about some of the programs for youth and also the progress on the first tee in the future? I missed the fact that this was fiscal only, that it was all about finances. And I know we're all, at least I think we're interested in programs that we're offering to the community and to youth and where we're going with the first tee. And then on a separate thing, I believe that David, you administer the food and beverage, right?
That's correct.
So is there any ever discussion among all of you about the clubhouse and the restaurant facilities to improve or enhance them? I'm probably going way off the agenda here, but I just wondered if that was something that you're thinking about.
I will just note that there is, I think, in that master plan, a second stage to update or upgrade the food and beverage in the offices. And I'll leave, I guess, the rest of that discussion to Mr. Doe.
Thank you, David. As a city-owned facility, the improvements would be something that the city would need to consider and whether or not we move forward with that. I've had some discussions with the city's facilities team to see whether or not this is something that we want to push forward with at this time. I think you are aware that annually the capital improvement projects throughout the city are proposed by multiple departments, and we look at what the available budget is, and then we prioritize projects. At this time, a near future expansion of the facility is not on the horizon. It doesn't mean that we wouldn't be able to consider it in future years, but just considering the available pool of funds versus the needs throughout the city, it is not on the near horizon. If I could answer to your other questions, in regards to programs offered at the golf course, approaching youth, we do have 2 programs. You brought up the first tee, using our facility as a teaching facility, and then we also have a youth on course program. So We do have an agreement with the First Tee to work on establishing and finalizing a partnership that is still in process. It's a long-term partnership where they would facilitate and fundraise funds to improve facilities, practice facilities in particular. And so that is a partnership that is pending in the near future. I think I'll ask David if he could expand on programming though for youth and discuss perhaps the Youth on Course program and a little bit about the First Tee and perhaps the high school program as well.
Great, thank you. So the Youth on Golf Course program, you probably know, is actually administered by the NCGA, Northern California Golf Association. It provides discounted rates for junior golfers. The junior golfer pays $5 at the golf course. The golf course is reimbursed an additional $5 by the NCGA for that. In the year 2022, we had 1,100 rounds generated from the Youth on Golf Course. In addition to that, we had another 2,500 rounds paying the junior rate, which is a $15 rate. So about 3,600 rounds of junior play. And then in addition to that, of course, we have the First Tee of Silicon Valley. They have 4 seasons, spring, summer, winter, fall. Those are 8-week programs. And they had a total of 258 participants this past year. 20% of those participants actually received some sort of financial aid, whether partial or full tuition for that. Of those 258, 35% were girls, 65% boys. A little more demographic on that, 84% of that total are minorities, non-white. So a large percentage of that youth on course. 36% of those at our property are Palo Alto residents. Another 5% are from East Palo Alto, and then 16% from Redwood City. More programming that we've had there this past summer, and we'll continue it this summer. We had 5 separate 1-week sessions of junior golf camps. We had a total of 100 kids in those junior golf camps. And then we're planning a spring break junior golf camp this coming April 3rd through 7th. So we'll grab another 20 or 24 kids for that program. In addition to all of those programs, we have the individual golf lessons. And this past year, we had 3,400 hours of instruction provided for pay. So those are kind of the nuts and bolts of our player development and instruction programs.
Great, thank you. Thank you, and thank you for including the number of girls that are participating. I appreciate that.
Commissioner Brown?
Yes, thank you for the great presentation. It's nice to see, again, the great revenue numbers, especially with all of the environmental and sort of unanticipated factors with the air quality as well as the storms. I think, unfortunately, things like that are the new normal, but it is nice to see that municipal golf has been able to withstand that. And I apologize for the pun, but I think we hit a little bit of a stroke of good luck when we did the renovations, timing with COVID, and then being able to retain that level of interest in the course. So the investment seems to have been paying off, and we've hit our stride with getting a consistent group and a lasting power. So I think as long as we continue to look forward and sort of anticipate things like bad weather, air quality, these sort of unanticipated things, and just being able to handle those, I'll look forward to an equally positive report in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Vice Chair.
Yes, thank you so much for the report. I do have a couple questions on the golf shop and the restaurant. I know the golf shop, we were questioning a couple years ago how the performance of that was going and the revenue, and just was curious for an update on those two areas of the golf course.
I'll start, and then how about I address the golf shop, and then I'll ask David to address the food and beverage service. You're absolutely right, Vice Chair. When we first reopened the first full fiscal year 19, when we operated, much of the operating in the red that we lost, it wasn't from lack of golf play from what we projected. It was from lack of sales of hard goods and soft goods from the pro shop. We are in an environment that we compete so much more now with online retailers and consumer behavior that's sort of changed away from their willingness to go out and touch and feel goods. The convenience of online shopping has sort of replaced a lot of that. So we're constantly competing against online vendors. What the OB Sports has done is sort of branded itself, the Baylands Golf Links, and created an environment of affinity to address sales of soft goods. So branding of Baylands goods in particular, instead of and not selling just generic golf shirts or golf equipment, but trying to create an affinity to and a little bit of loyalty to garner the retail sales at the pro shop. We've seen some success in that. It's, however, still is a struggle. So much of what we rely on right now is actually golf play and golf practice, being the driving range and golf play. But the retail sales continues to be a struggle. And I hope that's a good summary, David, and feel free to contribute to that.
No, you are correct. The retail sales are a struggle. As you know, we have a mile or so down the road, the PGA Superstore is our main competitor. So it's difficult to compete with that. Our advantage is we are on the green grass. We're there as they're playing golf. Our successes are more in the golf balls, gloves, headwear, that kind of thing. The equipment sales and clothing sales is a little bit of a struggle. We actually are moving away from stocking hard goods equipment and moving more towards our fitting days. So we've had a number of fitting days now over the past year with Titleist, TaylorMade, and Callaway, where the golfer will make an appointment. There's a charge for that fitting. It's a 1-hour fitting process. That charge, if they buy equipment that day, goes towards their purchase. So it's not an additional charge to them. And we've had great success with that, where a high percentage, when I say high percentage, like 90% of those being fit are purchasing equipment. So that's kind of more of the avenue that we're going towards for the equipment sales.
And how about the restaurant?
The restaurant basically is a break even. There's just not enough activity. We do, obviously, the golfers, we have that business, and then some localized businesses there will come over for lunch. We've developed some nice relationships with those businesses where they're beginning to bring back some of their group meetings and those type of functions. But without success of a high level or high dollar banquet business, in my opinion, due to the facility itself, it's tough to make much of a profit there.
And then, Lom, in terms of there's $5.3 million in revenue. What's the net fiscal impact for the city? What does the city see in terms of direct revenue from the golf play and the sales?
Yeah, so the revenue is one side of the equation. The other side of the equation is what the city pays to operate the golf course and also for debt service. Debt service being the payments that the city makes annually for having taken on debt to renovate the golf course. So two sides of the equation. We've been fortunate the last 2 years we've been operating in the black and not in the red. And the golf course as it's established right now is part of the general fund. So in any year that whether the golf course operates in the red at a loss or operates in the black at having been exceeding revenues over expenses, it goes to the general fund. So the general fund can either benefit from it or will be asked to absorb the loss. General fund, of course, is not necessarily holding on to the funds. General fund funds everything, all programs throughout the city.
But do we have a number of what that amount is that goes to the general fund, or the amount that the general fund paid in this last fiscal year?
Yes. All revenue, 5.3 million in last fiscal year went to the general fund, and all 4.2 million in expenses came from the general fund as well.
So you would say then there's a net profit of $1 million essentially to the general fund, or does OB Sports see a portion of that revenue?
The net of about 1.1 million is to the general fund. Within the expense category is the compensation to OB Sports.
Thank you. And then last question is, what high schools do we have relationships with in terms of their golf teams using the course, and what do we charge those schools for use of the course?
Sure. Thank you for that question. We have a big demand from high school sports at Baylands, and we can't accommodate it all. So we are have active participation with Gunn High School and Palo Alto High School, both boys and girls teams.
And do you know, how do we charge them, or what are the fees that they need to pay to use the course?
They pay, I believe it's some of them are youth on golf course. In fact, a large percentage of them are part of youth on golf course. So they pay $5 for the youth on course students, and then $10 for the others.
Thank you very much.
Commissioner Oche.
Thank you very much, Lam, for the presentation. The only quick question I wanted to confirm, I remember going through the Enjoy catalog, but I don't see the spring young golfers program that you talked about.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I saw anything like that advertised in the catalog. So I'm wondering where that information would be for residents.
Thank you for inquiring. I believe you're referring to the spring courses and year-round seasonal courses that are offered through the First Tee of Silicon Valley. So we partner with the First Tee of Silicon Valley, where they facilitate their own program. We provide a facility for them. However, they do the marketing, they do the advertising, and they do the registrations of the participants. The website for the First Tee is ftsv. And I apologize, it's either .org or .com. Perhaps anyone interested, I encourage them to do a Google search for the correct web address. It's First Tee of Silicon Valley. And it's either ftsv.com or ftsv.org.
Just to expand on that, though, you are correct. We have just developed that spring break clinic, or excuse me, camp for the children, and putting dates together for the summer camps. That's not complete yet, but once we have all that, then we'll make sure that it's in the city communication.
Thank you.
And I apologize, Commissioner Oche, if I misunderstood your question.
Thank you for the report, and David, thank you for being here with us this evening.
Thank you for your time.
And it's great to see that the bottom line is in the right direction for us this year. I have some questions, and then I have some more general comments regarding the the target revenue in the report, it indicated that the revenue, the actual revenue of 5.3 million was 32% above the target revenue. And then I'm looking to see that a year ago in fiscal 21, the actual revenue was 5.1 million. So why was the target revenue so much lower than the preceding year's actual revenue? And then the question for this year is, what is the target revenue for FY23?
Yeah. So the city's combination of projections, budgeting, and funding is a factor of multiple factors in play. It is both a discussion with the course operator, OB Sports. It's also looking at a third-party financial pro forma that was performed for the golf course to get future year projections. And then it is also a little bit of internal discussions on perhaps we look beyond the pro forma and look beyond the recommendation or discussion with OB Sports and have other influences in there. So in general, though, the city has preferred to look at 3-year trends instead of just assuming an uptick is going to be in place. And so I've been in some discussions with our office management budget on how we should project the future fiscal year. And we haven't finalized on what that revenue target will be. It could be that we not look at 3 or several 4 years trend. Perhaps we look at just 1 or 2 year trend and adjust it based on that instead. But we haven't come to where that number will be yet.
And is there an impact of having a budget production that's off by 32%?
I think that granted, the revenue projection may seem low, but I think the overall final number, what really matters is the actual that comes in versus what the expense is. That's the number that really is the bottom line, whether or not the golf course is doing well.
Could you repeat that? Could you repeat that, please?
Oh, recognizing that what you bring up, the golf course revenue, actual revenues being 30% higher than the projection, and perhaps the projection needs to be adjusted. But I think what's more important is the final number of the actuals. What is regardless of what the projection is the actual number that comes in and how that relates to when compared to what the actual outlay expense is, and whether that's a net operating in the black or net operating in the red. Having said that, I think there would be a benefit to perhaps tightening up and having a golf projection that is closer to what we think what the actuals has been. I think that's what the Office Management Budget and I have been discussing in regards to perhaps not looking at 3 or 4 year trends, but looking at maybe a 1 or 2 year trend to project the future year. Instead, will be the budget process for next fiscal year 20 is we're in the early stages of that.
Or perhaps considering tossing out outlier data if COVID years were not consistent.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
Or perhaps considering tossing out, not including outlier data years for something like COVID.
Yes, correct. Yeah, right. So perhaps
to
the outlier
reduce
20,
the impact.
fiscal year 20, yes.
Mr. Chair.
So regarding the budgeting process for the golf course is during the city's annual budgeting, the process in June that gets finalized in June. How much of the golf course budget is made transparent in that process, or is this review essentially the annual public review of the golf course budget?
No, the golf course budget is reviewed as its own page in the department proposal. So the department proposal includes by division But in particular, there are two programs in community service department that are called out individually, and that's the golf program and the human services program. And that's probably the most I wouldn't say transparent, but most where the golf program is highlighted. I think that's a good way to say it. Where all expenses, all types of revenues, including debt service, is outlined in the budget process.
And that budget process includes the data from previous fiscal year?
It includes the data from previous 4 fiscal years.
Okay, because part of what I'm looking at is that this report is pretty light on details, and I think as a public golf course, as a public asset, it's important to make sure that there's more visibility.
Yes, and I agree with you. I think,
and so, are you saying that visibility does exist in the annual budgeting that's approved by City Council, or is that not?
That's correct. That's correct. It's part of the proposed budget. It's also part of the adopted budget.
That's good to hear. Thank you.
Yes.
Then a question on the debt service. So what percentage of the overall expense is the debt service?
Let's use the most recent fiscal year, fiscal 22. It was a 4.2 million in expenses, and roughly 373,000, I believe, was debt service.
Sorry, 373.
370 and change was debt service. The debt service changes annually, however, based on the payment schedule, but it should not have drastic swings. It's on a payment schedule that's fairly consistent.
Thank you. Appreciate that. I appreciate that the golf course is being cared for well, and you have it well under hands. I am disappointed in this annual report to the Parks Commission. This is reviewed by us once per year, and yet we have to ask questions. We have to ask you about the status of the restaurant, the status of the pro shop, the youth programming, high school programs, First Tee. I really think this should be automatically part of the report that you're giving to us, and this should be the information. It's great, David, that you have the numbers to share with us, but it's hard for us to process that. I'd appreciate a follow-up summary of the numbers on the youth programming that David provided to us, so it could be more readily part of the record that we can review. I also think that the bigger picture in terms of the environmental mitigations as part of the golf course should be discussed at the same time. If we need to make it a separate agenda item as part of the same meeting, let's do that. But I think it's part of the bigger picture, and I think moving forward, I think this is an important goal to aim for. And I would encourage staff to work directly with the commission golf liaison, and I would ask the golf liaison to review the information that's going into the report before it gets agendized and provide feedback to make sure that a more complete picture, a complete story is being provided to the commission. Does this sound like something that would be reasonable to aim for next year?
Yes, we can do that.
Thank you. Appreciate that. And with respect to the natural environment mitigations, we definitely want to prioritize getting that to the commission as a separate item sometime in the early part of this year, and then as well as including it at an annual follow-up on that at the same time that we hear from the business and the financial and operations report.
Thank you.
And that's my opinion. I'm interested in hearing how other commissioners feel about this, and I also know that Commissioner Kleinhaus had something else that she wanted to say that covers it. I'm seeing a lot of heads nodding. There's that. Maybe I could say anything. I'll keep going. No, I won't. Any other comments regarding the golf report? Well, thank you. Thank you for joining us this evening. Thank you for sticking it out at this late hour. Appreciate that. And look forward to continued success. And the golf course is a great resource for our community, and both locally and regionally. So thank you for all your good work there.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, fellow commissioners, and thank you, David, for joining us as well.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Next on our agenda is the ad hoc committee and liaison updates. Who would like to start? Anyone? Does anyone have anything to report?
Yeah, the only thing I know we have a meeting scheduled tomorrow to, actually on Thursday, to go over the Hoover baseball concern, to see what we can do to help them get to the next step. So we've been trying to schedule some meetings last week, but couldn't get everyone together. So that's on the calendar for Thursday morning. So be able to give us some feedback on that, hopefully at the next meeting.
Could you clarify what the topic is that you're discussing?
So part of it is to, we had sort of I guess you could say a preliminary meeting back in December. And that discussion had, was around the condition of the field, the lack of maintenance on it. And so part of that was to meet with some of the city staff and with other stakeholders in the baseball community to try and figure out what we can do to at least come up with some short-term solutions, but also to look at some long-term solutions going forward.
Yep. The for sharing that.
The only other thing to report, and I think everyone's aware that the soccer fields are now back in operation. I have not been able to reach out to, at least, I guess the good news is we've not had anyone ping us to say, well, I think people are pretty happy with the results and are definitely taking advantage of using the fields. I'm going to reach out here in the next couple of days just to find out, if there's any timeliness of how the problem was resolved. I think going forward, we want to look at things like making sure that we're doing maintenance on the fields, and so that we don't kind of find ourselves in the same predicament that we were in here in the last few months or so.
Ann?
Sure. Yes. Thank you for the information about the Hoover Park, because that was on my list to find out how that was going along. So I think all the commissioners were aware that we were going to come and talk about the Recreation Wellness Center tonight. We appreciate being able to push that off until we gather a little bit more information and do a little bit more research. So I think at this point, the plan is that on our liaison and ad hoc reports next in February, we will talk briefly about the plan for community engagement. And then in the March meeting, we will make a presentation to the commission. I'm happy to answer any of the questions about that.
Great, thank you.
Okay, then in terms of the skate park, I think they're making, looks like they're making some progress, and we're going to meet with our ad hoc. We'll meet with Darren on next week to talk about the city's role. And then we have some information from Sam and his group that he said we could share tonight. He's been he's been at Greer with the designer looking at different opportunities, and he's now thinking he might like to do something in 2 phases that will make it easier for him and for everybody. So we'll discuss that next week, but they're making some progress. So just to ask Jeff and Nels, do you have anything that you want to add on our ad hoc? Perfect. Thank you.
As Darren mentioned already, the e-bike recommendation will be taken up by City Council probably in late February. And so Darren, I think it's appropriate for the e-bike ad hoc to basically wait for a response from City Council at this point, or is there, do you perceive a need for that group to convene?
Yeah, I think reconvening and preparing the presentation and our key points we think would be most helpful would be a good next step.
Okay. Comments from any others?
Yeah, I just have a couple comments. Just ongoing conversations with the group from Barron Park on dog parks, and continuing to work with staff on the North Palo Alto options there. And I just wanted to point out that, and thank staff, that the Pierce Park Dog Park it has a bunch of mulch in it. It seems to have fared very well with the storm, and the maintenance of it looks really great. There's new benches there. There's some improvements to the water station, and people seem very happy with that. So I just wanted to pass along that feedback. And then this one is through the PAUSD city liaison, but it also touches a little bit on Cubberly for you, Commissioner Freeman, is that the superintendent sent out an email in his update saying that conversations are resuming between the city and the school district on Cubberly. And so that information went out to everybody that's on that distribution list. So just as an update for this group. And that's it.
Thank you. Darren, regarding the recommendation that the commission, or the action that the commission took regarding the Mitchell Park Dog Park, has that gone to City Council for approval yet?
Yes, it's gone to a council and has been approved. Now we're in the purchasing process just to get it to go out to bid.
Okay.
It's been a bit of a backlog of projects, and so it's in the queue. It hasn't gone out to bid yet.
Okay, so there's no ETA for that at this
No.
point. Thank you.
I should say, Chair, just on that topic, we talked about Piers Dog Park faring well. The same cannot be said about the existing Mitchell Dog Park. It did not fare well. All those improvements that we highlighted the need for were really brought to the foreground with this flooding. So the drainage that's so awful contributed to a huge lake out there. Staff cleared it, but it's a problem. So we're really looking forward to this project and making that place better.
Thank you. And I did experience the river at Hoover Park as I was biking through one day and didn't wear the right shoes. If there are no more items to discuss on the ad hoc, we'll move on to Commissioner board member questions, comments, announcements, and our future agenda items. First off, does anyone have any questions or comments, announcements before we get into agendas? I think we've made some of our comments in the last round, and our liaison Vice Mayor Stone, anything you'd like to comment on?
I would just say I'm looking forward to working with the commission this year. I personally requested the mayor to place me as a liaison to this commission. I value the work that you do, and I appreciated the conversation at the beginning of this meeting regarding the annual survey. And I think some really, I found it to be very optimistic in the area of parks and open space and the commitment to climate change that the community has. My reading of the discussion last night at council was that there seems to be a lot of excitement moving forward and really kind of embracing the data that we got from that survey and really continuing to invest in parks, open space, and SCAP goals. So I don't have much to report tonight, given that's the beginning of the year, but encourage any commissioners who are interested. We do have our retreat on Saturday where we will be discussing our goals and priorities for the year. So if there's anything that the commission's interested in, or just individual commissioners, I'd encourage you to attend the retreat. It's at Mitchell Park Library, starts at 9 a.m., should go to 4, and a good opportunity to be able to get in front of the council and express your hopes for the year. So thanks for having me, and looking forward to working with you all. And if anyone is interested in grabbing a cup of coffee with me and getting to know each other one-on-one, I'm happy to do that. I'm sure the clerk can share my contact information with you. You can also find it on the website.
Thank you, Vice Mayor, and appreciate you taking the time to be with us this evening and actively pursuing serving as our liaison this year. And I know you have a lot of experience having served on a Palo Alto Commission, on the Human Relations Commissions for many years, so you have an understanding of the commission. I want to welcome you to the Fun Commission.
Thank you. I'm looking forward to it.
Okay, shall we move on to agendas coming up?
Sure. Thank you, Chair. One of the items for February will certainly be the commission attendance policy. So our city attorney, staff member who represents CSD, will be here to present to you on that and walk you through that process. The chair and I met a little bit before last month and talked about learning what some of the other commissions are doing with that so we can report it out. Javad Godes had helped research a little bit on that. So we've got some information that we could share with you to say, here seems to be the trend with the other boards and commissions and where they're leaning, which may help inform you a little bit. And again, our city attorney's office representative will help highlight that too during his presentation.
And we are expected to have made a decision on that by the end of February, if I understand correctly. So that'll be in action.
Yes. Yeah. And we've got two potential topics, the BCCP, which we discussed quite some time ago. There needed to be some follow-up, and I just got overwhelmed with other projects that needed attention. So we need to get back to that one. I think the next steps are to set up a meeting with some of the key stakeholders and start talking about, can we make this something that's going to be successful and move forward eventually to council approval? So that's potential. And then another one would be the Foothills Nature Preserve. Ideally, we would have the new supervising ranger. His name's Mike Warner, present. You get to meet him and he can talk you through more specific ranger activities at Foothills that I think would be of great interest to the commission. So I'll see if we can maybe get him to come in, and if not, perhaps that's a better one for March.
Okay, and then for March, we also have the Wellness Center gym.
And Chair, I was curious if you had any new news on tree protection ordinance for March as a viable.
Right, and so we had been asked by City Council to review the update to the tree ordinance a certain number of months after it was passed. Maybe it was 6 or 9 months, because I penciled it in for February. So I'll check on that. But I noticed that on the planning calendar. And where are we with the mitigation, natural environment mitigations for the golf course? I'm not clear where we are and when it's appropriate for that to come to the commission.
I'm not sure when it's appropriate to come to the commission either. I know the next important step is hearing back from the water board. So we sent them what they'd asked for. And their next step is to get back to us and say, here's what we want you to do with this. Okay, so we now understand where you're at. This is what we want you to do. And so that next step is really hearing from the water board.
So that's Valley Water? Or?
No, not Valley Water, but the State Water Board.
State Water Board. And do we have any idea when to expect to hear from them? And
we checked in very recently and were told that they need some more time to review it. I think they're inundated with a lot of emergency action, like permits and issues that came with the storm that just totally dominated their time, so he hasn't had a chance to look at ours.
Any other items that commission members would like to suggest for upcoming agendas? Okay, well, thank you. If there's nothing else, so bring this meeting to a close. Thank you, everyone. Happy New Year. First time we've gotten together this New Year. I think we can still say that in January, and look forward to seeing everyone next month. And also encourage the ad hocs to come back from vacation and do a check-in, see what you need to do, and also liaisons to do the same. Take a look at your list and see what might be worth pursuing. Thank you to everyone for attending, and have a good evening.